Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes Demon King in Highschool Dxd Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Standing in the middle of the road was a boy who was looking on at some place that haunted his memories. Things had changed for him so drastically and it was not funny to him anymore. He wondered if fate was playing a hand in his misery or he was just that stupid of a person. It was unclear to which he was, but he was sure that something was going on with him and he couldn't take it anymore. His blonde hair glistened in the pale moonlight of the night, blue eyes were glaring at the building in front of him, and his whisker-marked cheeks were crinkled from constantly glaring at what was in front of him. The remains of the home was still showing signs of the destruction, but he didn't care. Even if everything he owned once was housed there, and even if he built the damn thing himself, meant nothing to him. The only thing that was ringing in his mind was what took place here. The memory was fresh, something he remembered since it was only a few days since the whole thing happened. Flashback begins. Naruto was walking to his private home with 2 rings in his pockets. Ever since the war had ended he had spent some time with his 2 fiancées and wanted to spend as much time as possible with them. The first he knew since his new family adopted him into the family, while the other he saved during the Great Civil War. They were contrast personalities of each other, one was bubbly and excitable, while the other was serious and strict. But he loved both of them more than anything in this world and wanted to spend more time with them as long as they lived. To build a family together and raise their children to be the future leaders of the underworld since they overthrew the original Satans from their old positions. The underworld needs new leaders, so this was something everyone knew was necessary to make changes. He was dreaming of a time he would become Lucifer and then start rebuilding the underworld while at the same time making new pacts with the other races and re-establishing the old ties that they severed years ago. But the minute he arrived at his home with the 2 rings in his pocket, he saw the door was unlocked. That was unusual since he knew his girlfriend always locked the door while he was gone. Entering the room he saw something that made his blood start running cold, clothes scattered on the floor. It was a bad sign, but he was hoping that this was not what he thought it was considering this was supposed to be a big day for him. After all, his friend's parents helped him pick out the rings personally for this day. Walking up the stairs he arrived at the master bedroom where he heard humping and groaning going on. Looking into the room he saw it was true, a red-hair man was fucking his girlfriend on his bed. Worse, his brother was doing this to him and he was doing it with the woman he loved. Slowly opening the door to not disturb them, he gathered magic around him, causing the room to start and shake from his gathered energy. This he knew would bring them out of their sex-induced states. "Honey, do you feel something?" Surzich sat up wondering what this weird feeling was. "I don't know." Grafia looked over and saw what was making the source of this power. Standing there was her boyfriend glaring at both of them with his black aura glowing around him. "Naruto," she whispered, and this caused Surzich to turn and see his brother in fear. While most would not think it, the truth was that his brother was more powerful than him. Even with his power of destruction he stood no chance against his brother in combat. Not even the fact he was adopted into their family was the problem either, but more it strengthened him since he wanted to prove he belonged in their family. In doing this he gathered power that was out of this world and made sure the world knew that he was waiting to prove his strength to everyone that crossed his path. Physically his brother would beat him within an inch of his life, while magically he could fare better, but since he fought more than he did, meant that Naruto was prepared for his attacks and planning different strategies to beat him. "Naruto," he ignored Grafia and focused his eyes on Surzich before gathering his magic into his hand, and then a seal appeared. "Disappear from my home." With that the whole building exploded in a shatter of nothing but pure power. The building was burning, and both Surzich and Grafia were barely able to escape the burning building. Naruto had already left the building and prepared to deal with them later. But he was going to inform his other girlfriend she was the only one in his world. Sadly he would face a similar problem with this situation arised. Entering her bedchambers he saw her lying on top of a man he knew and hated. Ceratus Bale, the eldest son of the head of the Bale family, and his girlfriend was lying on top of him like a lover. Seraphil, the woman he thought would never betray him, was sleeping with a man that hated his guts. Tears were rolling down his face and the Bale child was enjoying the sight. Pushing off the Citri girl he laughed while having a robe around his body. "Sad, isn't it? You can't have anything in this world, can't you, orphan? Why don't you do both of us a favor and get lost, or better yet kill yourself? After all, what real pureblood would ever want to be with you?" He was laughing inches from Naruto's face and then he felt something going on with him. Naruto within a split second slammed his hand through his chest and it exploded in a glow of black and red lightning. "Disappear, trash." Naruto's eyes are red now and they were glaring at the teen dying on his hand. Once he was sure he was dead, Naruto quickly beheaded his body and then woke Seraphil. "What is wrong, love?" Looking up she saw Naruto covered in blood. She knew she was in trouble now. "So this is what our relationship meant, huh?" Naruto, I'm sorry, please, you have to understand, he was so sweet to me. He was spending time with me while you were always busy with Graphia. How couldn't I fall for someone like that? I mean, come on, I know I said I would share, but a girl needs to feel special, right? Naruto's eyes grew darker and the entire room was shaking from the power he was radiating. He was showing her why he was an ultimate class devil with few equals in this world. Rivzium even came out to fight him since his power was equal to his own and he loved the battle they had with each other. But in the end he retreated after getting injured by Naruto and forced him to admit defeat while promising to come and kill him when the time was right. So all because I was busy spending time with either of you. Both think it's okay to go and see other men behind me? I never touched another woman other than you two, and I hoped you would do the same for me. Guess that was too much to ask for. Naruto pulled the ring box out of his pocket and threw it to the naked Seraphil. She opened it and was shocked to see a golden ring with a purple stone in the center of it glowing brightly. Seraphil knew what this meant and she knew she screwed up badly, considering this meant that he was going to propose to her soon. Naruto, I didn't know what? I was going to propose. Is that all that matters to you, that I was going to give you a ring and then suddenly everything that you've done is wrong? Honestly, how shallow are you? You truly are what the other devils said you were. What is that? Naruto glared at him and gathered a teleportation circle with his magic flowing through it. The whore. I fought them and killed a few because of this, but it turns out that they were right. Goodbye Seraphil, I will see you at the next meeting. There he disappeared from the room, leaving behind a crying Seraphil at the thought of losing the man she loved. She knew that the Bay Layer hated Naruto and here she went and had an affair with someone else. This was the ultimate sin for her and she knew that she lost the only person in the world that would ever love her. Her body started glowing until it took a childlike appearance and this was the sign of a change. She was never going to let anyone see the real body of Seraphil Citri until she earned Naruto's love and forgiveness. But the question was, whom did Graphia cheat on him with? Flashback end. Naruto was going through the ruins of his home, remembering the last few days had been hell for him. First he had the official notice of what each girl did and there was varying reactions. The Citrus, Phoenixes and the Bale family were furious. Not only for the heir that dared do this, but for the fact the girls would do this to a boy that loved them without boundaries. However, the Gremories, the family he was living with, didn't react the way he was hoping. While angry at their son, they forgave him and welcomed Graphia and their family. This ignited a rage inside of his heart where he challenged Surzich to a fight as a means to regain his honor. He hesitated at first but agreed to the match, but found out that was the wrong choice to make. Naruto had thrashed him with ease and showed the world that he was stronger than everyone in the underworld with this fight. Not only did he leave him barely breathing, he edged him along, leaving him without a chance of really recovering from the scars Naruto gave him. It was terrifying to everyone, the brutality he performed on his former brother, but they all saw it coming with how the fight was called out. On top of that, he also mentioned that he was taking the title of Lucifer from everyone and pushing for his right to rule, since he proved without a shadow of a doubt he was the strongest in the world. Sadly, the underworld didn't see it this way. While his friends and friendly family supported his claim, the issue for the council was that he was not a pure blood. This enraged Naruto since he believed blood lineage was not important. But they argued that it was necessary since they wanted to keep their rulers at the highest point possible. Plus the Gremory family did not support him losing his chances of even gaining the throne, in which his friends were put on the thrones while his former brother was given it. The entire underworld argued with this choice since he proved he was stronger than him and was the only real person they trusted. The lower class and mid-class devils argued and fought for him, but Naruto finally just gave up, not wanting to cause another war to break out. At this point he wanted to get away from this world while avoiding his personal problems. But he first wanted to gather some of his stuff he had protected from his attack and the fire before heading out. But he noticed something out of place in his kitchen, a hidden room below the house. He knew every inch of his home and never saw this before. So what was down there that was hidden underneath their dining table? Opening the door, he walked down the stairs and came to the side of a chamber that was holding someone hostage. Shockingly enough, it was Graphia, but a much bustier and more well-shaped version of herself. Rushing over to her, he snapped the chains and she fell into his arms. Slowly her eyes opened up and she smiled. Naruto Koi. Who the hell are you? The woman frowned. It's me, Graphia. Your lover. Naruto shook his head and pushed the woman onto her feet. No, Graphia is the woman that is occupying Surzich's private bedchambers. The silver hair and eye woman scrunched up for a second before showing him something. It was a ruby that was attached to a golden chain around her neck and flowed down into her cleavage. I thought she lost it. She never had it. I did, because I'm the real Graphia Lucifuge. Plus I know this. She walked up to him and whispered something. Naruto instantly went pale and walked away from her. Yeah, it's you. But how is this possible? He asked with a shaky breath. I can explain it. Reaching into her cleavage, she pulled out a photo for him to see. It was of two girls that looked like each other, but one had gray eyes while the other had silver eyes. How the hell? This is my sister, Lucretia. She is the twin of my family. But she is the younger of the two of us. I was planning on showing her off to you in the future, but the problem is that she attacked me and hid me away down here. In the attempt to gain a chance at being with Surzich and being free from being part of our family. So she pretended to be me while hiding me away and feeding me with the magic seals around my body, feeding some of the food that was cooked while living here. So you are real? You didn't cheat on me? Naruto had tears in his eyes and was trying to not fall for anything again. I swear my love, you are my one and only. I would never think about betraying you, and to prove it, she walked up to him and kissed him on the lips while looking him in the eyes. The passion in her eyes showed him she was serious and was not going to turn him away. These were not the same eyes he had been looking into for the last few years. My love, Naruto returned the kiss with equal passion, not wanting this to be a dream. Tell me you're mine, she smiled and returned the kiss with equal passion. I'm yours for all of eternity. Sacred vows are for us. Naruto smiled with tears running down his face. This was something that the two of them shared all the time. Sacred vows between devils was the meaning of permanent commitment, and no one could break these. If they did, then their magic would destroy their body from the inside out. Naruto released her and led her upstairs to see their destroyed home. When asked what this was about, he told her everything: Serafal betraying him, Surzich fucking her sister in his bed, and the battle that took place before losing his title of Lucifer to someone that didn't deserve it. Along with the Gremory family betraying him and turning their backs on him while embracing the entire thing as if it was okay in their eyes, and there were no consequences that befall them for their son's actions. What will we do, my love? Naruto grabbed her hand and said, we are leaving the underworld, we are going to use that magic and travel to other worlds. Grafia was shocked, he swore to never use his dimensional magic, considering this could easily rip the world apart if he was not careful. Plus he was not sure where they would be placed if he did this. Chaos magic was rare in the world and is known for being unpredictable when you use it. Naruto honestly didn't care, he wanted to be free from this world and its burdens for a while. Well, he had his true love with him at this point. The pain of what Serafal had done to him and the betrayal of the family he once loved hurt more than anything. The fact they just forgave their son and pushed for him to be Lucifer showed him no matter what they said to him, it was nothing, he was nothing in their eyes. Okay dear, so are you using it now? Yes, the sooner the better. Naruto focused on a small tear in space in front him, and soon the portal opened showing a black endless void. Grabbing his love's hand, he smiled at her. She returned it. This was the sign that they would change history forever. Walking through the portal, they entered a new adventure, one that would re-establish his right as king and one day show the world why he should have been the Lucifer of the underworld. Centuries later, the bright light was shining through his room and he was cursing the sun that dare awaken him. Rubbing his eyes, he turned over to see a beautiful silver-haired woman lying comfortably next to him with a peaceful smile on her face. Next to her was another silver-haired woman who was sleeping peacefully alongside a pink-haired woman. Rolling out of bed, he saw that his last lover, a blonde-haired woman, was in the bathroom doing her hair up and making sure her Maiko outfit was ready for the day. Sneaking up on her, he wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her on the neck. Morning, Yusaka. She smiled. Hey there, Naruto-kun. She kissed him on the cheek and they walked out the bathroom to see the other women waking up. Morning, loves. All of them smiled. Morning, Naruto-kun. The women all rolled out of bed, showing they were all naked and getting ready for the day. Most of them got dressed in the closet, but the main door slammed open with authority and a squeaky voice shouted, Appa. Baby Eliza is crying again. There was a blonde-haired girl with golden eyes and 9 gold and white tip tails flaring behind her. Alright Kunu, I'll get her. Go help wake up everyone in my room, okay? If you have to get your sisters involved. Kunu smiled and dashed out of the room to get her sibling to help out. You spoil that little girl. Turning to Yusaka, Kunu's mother and the mother of his oldest daughter, and smiled. Yeah, I do. That is my job for now. Spoiling her while she is my little princess before she becomes older. Yusaka smiled and kissed her husband while leaving the room to make sure the other women wake up soon. But she noticed Grafia was already gone, probably going to take care of their youngest. Kunu had returned to the room with 2 girls in tow. One was a light silver-haired girl with red eyes and she was wearing a dark black dress complementing her gothic look, and another was a blonde-haired girl with her hair in a bun wearing a blue and white dress. These were his second and third oldest, Akasha his vampire devil daughter and Saber his daughter that was part hero devil. Each of them had grown up together to the point that they were the greatest of friends with each other. Kunu was the one that jumped on the bed arousing the women from their sleep. The silver-haired, red-eye woman smiled. Morning, my precious daughter. Akasha smiled. Morning, Kasama. She rose from the bed wearing a pair of black underwear and hugged and kissed her daughter. Morning, mother, it is time to rise. Arthuria smiled at her daughter, trying to be so mature. Sweetheart, no need to be so formal, come here and give me a hug. The girl blushed slightly and hugged her mother. I'm supposed to be a brave knight, I have to act as my station demands me. You can do that when you're older, for now be my adorable daughter. The girl blushed deeper. Mother. Naruto laughed and saw lightning rising out of bed with a yawn and smile. Morning lightning. Morning Naruto-kun, what is the occasion? Well, I'm going to check on my last child and then you and me might try for another child, how's that sound, love? Naruto blew lightly on her ear, causing a blush to burn on her face before she disappeared into the bathroom to avoid more humiliation. Naruto laughed and walked out of the room to find his last wife. For him she was the first love of his life and he would never trade her away for anything in this world. Due to her being a devil it was harder to impregnate than the other women in his group and knew this annoyed her. But after having their daughter she was having the time of her life being a mother and loving wife. Naruto snuck into a nearby room and saw Graphia as beautiful as the day they met. Her silver hair going down her back, silver eyes staring lovingly at their daughter, and her figure being still amazing as the day they met, but maybe more so since she had his child and seemed to glow whenever they were around their child. How is she? Graphia smiled, feeding happily. Looking down he saw that his 5-month-old daughter was sucking on her to get more milk to sustain herself. This is Eliza, the youngest of his children and considered the pride and joy of the family. Not only was she blessed as a devil and one of the Lucifuge line, she was a blessing for Graphia, showing she was blessed to have everything she ever wanted in life. It seems she is hungry this morning. Graphia snorted. She gets her appetite from you considering how much ramen you can shovel away. Hey. Ramen is the food of the gods, don't you dare mock it. Eliza shared her father's anger and pouted slightly. Hey, there is no need to be upset about it. I'm just stating the facts. Eliza continued to feed, but Graphia saw she was still glaring at her. Great, her daughter was just like her husband. That was going to be annoying. Anyway, I will work on breakfast, join us when you can. She smiled and nodded her head. Naruto left the room and saw his family was sitting at the table, while there were 2 more additions to the room. One was a blonde-haired girl with pigtails and wearing a orange and black jumpsuit. She had whisker marks on her face and blue eyes. If he was not sure of how he was born and knew his own features, he would have been sure this girl was his sister. Next to her was a blue-haired woman wearing a white general uniform and carrying a rapier at her side. These 2 were Naruto and Dxd. Naruto was a member of his peerage that he got after visiting Ajuka a couple of months ago. The man recognized him and welcomed him home, but they are agreeing to keep quiet about it to avoid him being spotted by people that he didn't want to see anytime soon. Dxd on the other hand was belonging to his wife Graphia's peerage. While at first she never wanted one, she finally relented when meeting people she wanted there to assist her and her husband in the near future with any upcoming fights that would come their way. Naruto knew that his return was going to start a shit ton of trouble. For one thing, he knew about everything that has happened in the underworld at the time. First, Surziches was running into trouble with the other factions with tension high after a horrible incident known as the Nekashu slaughter. One Nekashu who he met attacked and killed her king when he was planning on raping a little girl that was her sister, and this led to her people being targeted and being slaughtered. Some even were raped, but luckily he was able to get someone to help protect the rest of them, but the damage was done and the Yokai and Shinto gods and goddess were less than happy with the result. Next, it turned out that the low and mid-class devils were being abused by the high class over the years and it was causing tensions to rise all over the underworld. Afraid of losing power, Surziches always sided with the elders and the high-class families, leading to riots breaking out all across the underworld. Naruto understood that they were important families that did great things, but that did not mean they were above the laws in place to protect the other class devils. Worst was that when one of them was abused, killed, or raped, Surziches did nothing to help the family of those that were hurt unless the elders allowed it. Knowing this, Naruto knew that he would have to be careful with his return. In the war, he was the one that united all the other races and classes in the underworld to his side. They were promised at least fair treatment, but that was denied to them, and soon as he was denied the right to be Lucifer. This led to the lower class nearly destroying the underworld again. So if he was to appear out of nowhere, it might spark a full-out civil war among the people and force everyone to run for cover or to fight for their lives, and this would weaken their nation as a whole. Naruto also knew that the Gremory family was deeply burned by his departure and hatred that they were doing anything to find him. At the same time, the Citri family found out what Seraphil did and were distancing themselves from her as a whole. She was even worse off than before, where she fell back into her childlike personality and was doing nothing to properly represent herself as the woman that he knew. Strong, powerful, and sexy beyond belief. Sadly, this also meant the Bale family was wanting some of his blood for killing the heir to one of the branches to the family and the favorite of Lord Bale. Naruto, after fighting some of the enemies he has, knew that no one in this universe could possibly hurt him, considering he would obliterate them all within seconds. Shaking his thoughts, he knew that he was going a long way in fixing some of the problems of the family by making deals with other factions and posing as a high-class devil with connections to the underworld. One of the deals he was making is protection for the church and building their buildings outside of Europe and into Asia. Doing this, they are protected to do this in practice as they must, but they are monitored in case they are trying something against the church's ideals. Another group is the fallen angels after running into Azazel, who he met when he returned to this world and knew that he wanted something from him. In this case, he learned he was interested in a sacred gear and a boy in Kuo, so drawing up a contract he sent it to Seraphil under an alias and had this signed off as a chance to improve relations with the fallen. Naruto was assured if it was what he thought it was then he would bring it into his faction. Naruto sighed, that man was obsessed with sacred gears and at the same time Naruto knew that everyone was on pins and needles. While among the Satans he was known as a half-blood, no one knew who his other parent was until he was about 18 when he was exploring different worlds thanks to his magic. He learned that the story of Lucifer falling from heaven and becoming a devil was a lie. It was someone running around with his name instead, and that meant he was a fallen angel in this case. Going on this, he explored more and realized his father was Lucifer, the one that fell from heaven, not the one that was born in the underworld by some dark matter forming on its own. Naruto sees Graphia coming into the room with his daughter and draws him out of his thoughts. He sees little Eliza was reaching out for him and gurgling words to try and get his attention. "Here, your daughter wants you." Naruto smiles and takes her out of her mother's arms and started rocking her in his arms. "How's daddy, princess?" She smiles and claps at him while laughing. He was making silly faces at her, making her laugh louder than before. Naruto smiled when he saw his other daughters coming into the room with their mothers. "Do-san play with us too." Kunu was pouting that their sister was getting all the attention and so were her siblings. "Now Kunu, you and your sisters know that your sister can't take care of herself yet. She needs us to look after her and it is your job as her sisters to make sure she is safe and loved." Kunu's ears flattened. "Sorry, Two-san." He smiled and pat her head. "It's fine now, come on, breakfast is ready, right Naruko?" She smiled and presented several clones dealing out pancakes for the people in the room. Everyone took their seat in the room and he sighed. This is the world he was fighting for the longest time and no matter what he would protect this from everyone else. The bird landed on the table with a message on it and saw it was signed from Azazel and sighed. "What's wrong now?" In the land of Wave in the elemental nations was facing a crisis against a cruel ruler. His name is Gato and he is the head of the great Gato shippings, but the truth is that he controls the company through the underhanded means. He is feared by the people and those that work for him for his ruthless personality and his dark deeds performed on those around him. He even hires rogue shinobi to do his bidding if the price is right. But today was a especially dangerous day for a man in Wave named Tazuna had hired some shinobi to help him by protecting him while he was building a bridge to the mainland. This would cut into Gato's business allowing them to finally rebuild their economy that has plummeted over the years. However, Konoha had learned of the deceit and while they were going to work out a new idea they understood why he did it considering their economy had plummeted over time. So now instead of Team 7 consisting of Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, there was also Team 8 consisting of Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburam and their teachers Kakashi Haddock and Kurina Yuuhi. From the groups, Kakashi knew that his team needed the most work in the sense of teamwork. Not because they didn't work well together when the situation called for it, but because their personalities are always clashing. Sasuke believed everything the village believed about him being the greatest and planned on taking his vengeance against Itachi for murdering most of their clan. Only a handful survived that day including his mother, but it got worse when he found out his mother did not care about what Itachi did and only wanted to live in peace. He considered her weak and planned on taking over the clan soon and race after Itachi in the sense. Sakura was worse than him at times because she either spent her time hitting on him and trying to get a date out of him. Whereas other times, she is more interested in clothes and fashion ideas instead of training when she has a chance. Thus making her the weakest of the team and her generation. Plus she was always shouting at Naruto for trying to steal her Sasuke when really she had no interest in him and even if he does have an interest in her, he would have to get past his father and that was nearly impossible. Another thing is that Naruto's brother Menma would sooner kill the arrogant Uchiha than let him become part of their family. Naruto on the other hand was more focused on what needed to be done for their mission and what is required. Her senses were stretched to the point that she could pick up the faintest sounds that come by her. Sadly, she was also distracted by the fact her brother is on a different team with two people that at least took their field work more seriously than her teammates. Kakashi barely trained her, especially considering he focused most of his time on Sasuke and training him exclusively while fainting that she needed to work on her control. But that was the funniest thing considering she do the water walk exercise while Sasuke and Sakura can't even climb a tree yet. Arriving in Wave they encountered heavy resistance from a missing nin named Zabuza, but Kakashi and Kurenai managed to corner him and almost kill him until a hunter nin appeared. From there they took him away leaving Kakashi passed out and Kurenai carrying him and sending another request for backup since they were going to need it at this point. While this is going on in the far distance at an abandoned church in the middle of the forest was someone sitting on a stone. He had a candle next to him and he was reading his book while having his face covered in darkness. This man had a long coat with fur on it on his wrists and his neck with an inverted cross on the back. On his forehead was a cross with a circle going through it and he had it open, showing he was not wearing a shirt underneath his coat at this moment. He is wearing long black pants, black boots, and on his pants, he had white belts wrapping around his leg. Reading his book, no one could tell what he was thinking or what his face looked like other than him having blonde hair that was spiked and dark blue eyes staring into the darkness, but they had tints of black in them. Below the man was two others, both blonde themselves, but one was wearing a green and white jumpsuit and had his hair slicked back. Another was wearing a purple outfit and he had his hair flat topped. Turning their heads, they heard heel shoes walking into the room and saw a woman wearing a purple business suit showing off her cleavage walking into the room. She was not wearing a bra from what they could see, and from there they saw that she was wearing a short skirt. "Akinoda, good to see you." The boy with flat top hair was the first to greet her with a smile on his face. "Good to see you again too, Shelnark, you too, Finks." The man in the jumpsuit, Finks, grunted. "You're late." She looked at her watch. "On time from what I can see." He looked down. "We were supposed to arrive 10 minutes earlier, that includes the rest of you." Turning behind them, they saw two more people entered the room. One had long black hair and was wearing a tight black top and bottoms and some foot wrappings. He had a sadistic grin on his face and smiled at the group while showing off his bloodlust to the room. Next to him was a silver hair man wearing a red jacket and bottoms that were leather made. His red eyes stared at them and he had a small lazy smile on his face. "Hey Envy, Ben, you guys going with yous too?" The two smiled at one of the more excited members of the troupe. "Yeah, we are." "Huh, I don't care what is going on, I'm just hoping the boss gives me something to kill soon." Everyone saw the bloodlust in Envy's eyes and how he was eyeing their boss wanting the order. But a hand landed on his head. "Know your place, fool. The boss hasn't given us our orders or told us what we are stealing yet." Out of the shadows came a dark-skinned man with gray hair that spiked up in the back and he is wearing a bear pelt belt and coat over his shoulders. He had dark gray eyes and was smiling wildly at the idea getting loose and start to kill things around him in annoyance. "I'm reporting for duty, boss." "So like Envy said, what's our target this time?" "I'm itching for some action." Shalnark laughed. "Easy there, Yuvo, Phaeton's group won't be arriving until this afternoon, so we have to wait until then." Yuvo snorted. "Great whole half day of waiting." But he smiled, "Well, if it isn't Shizuku." Now in the room was a woman with short black hair, wearing a tight black top, jeans, and shoes. Her eyes were covered by her glasses and she had wine red eyes along with wearing a golden cross around her neck. "Hello." She kept her blank face and was staring ahead. "Has the new replacement showed up yet?" Shalnark raised his shoulders to Pakinoda's question. "Don't know, you might want to ask Machi when she comes because she is the one that was supposed to contact them." Everyone started talking a bit while their leader was still sitting by his candle reading his book. Not even bothering to greet anyone yet. But if anyone could feel the slightest chakra flux, they would have noticed his chakra was slowly rising as time was passing by. Town of Wave. On the outskirts of town were 4 people. One was a samurai-looking man with a sword at his side. He had his hands inside of his kimono. Another was a short man with black hair, pale skin, and beady black eyes. He was wearing a mouth-covering outfit with skulls and flames on them and in the darkest form of black possible. Next to them was a large man with long earlobes, wearing a blue overalls and a white shirt, and he had stitches on his face and some parts of his body. He was by far the largest of the group, being the size of a small car. The final person had pink hair and was carrying a tan sack over her shoulder and wearing tight outfit around her body and some leg warmings. "I wonder," started the samurai man, "how long has it been since the troop was assembled like this?" He put his hand to his chin and looked at the shortest of the group. "Phaeton, you know." The small man turned his head and whispered. 3 years 6 months, but 2 have changed, numbers 4 and numbers 8 are different." "Machi," the tall man asked the girl with pink hair, "do you think 4 will show up today for this meeting?" "Don't ask me. I haven't the foggiest idea." "Weren't they your responsibility?" She rolled her head. "I just told them the time and place and how important the meeting was." Phaeton gained a small glare. "I do not like 4. Why does the boss let them get away with their habits?" "Probably for their skills." He rubbed his chest while Phaeton grunted. "Skills? Yeah, I mean that bloodline the boss stole for them is versatile, with it making them a force of nature in their own right. They would be difficult to deal with for all of us." "Are you saying the boss is scared of 4? Watch yourself." He was glaring down the samurai with great intensity. "That's not what I meant, calm down." The giant snorted. "You give them too much credit, you need to stop blowing their ego up." The samurai scoffed. "Talk is as cheap as ever." The two walked in silence for a bit before the giant swung his fist at the samurai, who blocked it with his sheathed sword. "Shut up, or this is what happens, Nobunaga." Nobunaga smiled. "You were talking as much as I was, Franklin." The two started a sparring match in the middle of the street, freaking the civilians out. Machi sighed. "Here we go again." Phaeton turned away. "Leave them, they are just playing." Machi and him continued, knowing that they would both catch up to them at some point. So do you know why the boss called us all here? We are thieves. I suspect he wants us to steal something. That much I knew, but I mean why wave? This place is a shithole ever since Gato took over. Not sure, but the boss has his reasons. Our job is to follow orders. Yeah, I know, but still there must be something special here if he wants us to come to this place. Through they stopped fighting. They saw Franklin and Nobunaga are coming up to them, leading to them making it to the HQ for the day. All were gathered in the room listening to Yuvijin yelling at Franklin and Nobunaga for being late and not showing up at the appropriate time. Eventually the day wind down to the point that the sun had set, and now they were waiting for the last member to show up. They aren't coming. Finks was annoyed by 4 blowing off orders. The sun has set. Damn them, the next time I see them I'll tear them apart. Yuvijin was already maiming this guy for what he did. The candle went out and then the boss shut his book and they heard a small laugh from the other side of the room. Oh my Yuvo, hearing that I'm terrified. Maybe you can bring me closer to death then. Out of the shadows came a man with long black hair, black eyes, and wearing a white suit with a white hat on his head. He smiled at the group. Kimberly. Yuvijin jumped ready to rip the man to pieces. I guess you are running late, huh? Shalnark tried to lessen the tension in the room, but he could see everyone was staring him down at this point. I didn't think you would show. Kimberly smiled at Machi. Why wouldn't I? The boss ordered me to show up, but I just decided to take my time getting here. Especially considering I find things more interesting when I do things on my own clock instead of someone else. Okay boss, everyone is here. Out of the shadows stood the blonde leader and he looked about 18, making him an imposing figure. He was blank in the face, but it changed after he formed a small smile on his face. So boss, what are we stealing this time? The boss smiled. We are stealing the Gato fortune and burning his business to the ground. The group gained an eager look on their faces and were ready for this. So boss, does that mean that we can kill everyone that gets in our way? The boss smiled again. Of course Yuvijin, but remember we need Gato to die before we can say we are done. Phaeton remembered something and decided to voice this to their leader. Boss, I heard rumors that there are some shinobi in the village that hail from Konoha. Their leader showed no outward expression and just turned to the group. You all remember the rule, no killing major village shinobi, is that clear? We don't need their attention on us just yet. The group nodded their head and then he continued, as for the mission itself we are splitting into 3 teams. I will remain here unless someone needs my help immediately, while the rest of you are split into groups of 4. One will head to the bridge to find this Tazuna and deal with his attackers. The second group will head to his mansion and slaughter all of his guards and free anyone that is of no use to us, on top of stealing everything in his vault and stashes of money. Finally, the final group will head to the docks and kill and steal everything there that is worth something. Yes boss, do you have teams set up though? Machi was the first to make the statement because some of them worked well with some, but at the same time worked better with some specific members. Yes, the mansion team shall consist of yourself, Finks, Envy, and Franklin. Franklin will use his chakra bullets to eliminate the majority of them outside the building and those that rush at the gates when you are attacking the place. Finks will head into the building and start killing those that get in his way, while Envy turns into different monsters and creatures to help clear out the inside of the building. Finally, you yourself, Machi, will assist Finks in the interior and start using your abilities to deal with anyone that tries to run. Yes boss. Next, the dock attackers are going to be Nobunaga, Shizuku, Pakinoda, and Shalnark. Shalnark will use his ability to find information on the goods and then send the message back to the rest of you. Then Pakinoda will use her weapon skills to take down the ones farthest from the group, while Nobunaga will deal with anyone that gets too close, and finally Shizuku, your job is to clean up the mess, making it seem nothing is wrong. But if you notice some of them using chakra, use Blinky to absorb it into the vacuum cleaner and use later. Got it boss. Shalnark and his team nod their heads and were ready for some action themselves. Finally Yuvijin, Kimberly, Ban, and Phaeton, you are all to head to the bridge and deal with anyone that is there that is not wearing a Konoha headband. The worst you can do to the group is maybe break their bones or beat them until they out cold. Keep this in mind and be ready for whatever comes your way. Everyone nodded their heads and got ready for their jobs, and the boss said, "Go." Everyone took off in different directions, leaving the boss in his room alone and thought, "Are you here, my little siblings? How far have you come since my departure?" He leaned his head back, remembering his time as Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Jounin for the village, and what many considered the future Hokage in the making. But he honestly didn't care for the titles that were given to him. More in the sense that everything that revolved around titles lead to arrogance and people overestimating their own powers. He hated this fact and only desired to find his own place in this world. All he ever wanted to do is go where he pleases, kill who he wants, and steal what he wants and use everything to his advantage. Opening his book again, he had his candle light up again and he read the page that gave him the most joy. A picture of the Uchiha Sharingan but in its transformed state. Naruto's book was special. It was an Uzumaki bloodline ability where he could manifest his chakra into create weapons of his own design. For the most part he only had 2 weapons he had in his arsenal, but the other weapon is more for when in direct confrontation and didn't have time use the book. The book is special, he called it the bandit's secret and it was capable of stealing bloodlines from people around him. But the cost of doing something this amazing was that he had to clear 4 hurdles. He had to see the ability or bloodline in works himself. He had to know how the ability works by asking the person who is using it. The person's hand must touch the cover of his book that has a handprint on it. All of this must be done in under an hour. This ability of his was considered dangerous in a right sense, but he noticed the restrictions on the ability. First he had to keep the book open to the chapter that had the power he wanted. Then he can only use it while the book is open, otherwise the power disappears alongside the book. But he didn't mind this drawback because he mastered the art of single-hand signs in his time being a shinobi and learning more about his book's powers. It soon led to him gaining the powers of the Uchiha and Hyuga while he was wandering around the village. While he was worried when they died they would take their powers with them, but he saw that once he steals an ability it stays in the book no matter what and that even the original owner dying doesn't change this. Naruto got excited about this and started looking around for more people with bloodlines to add to his book for the future. One of his greatest accomplishments is that he learned ice release, bone release, explosion release, typhoon release, magnet release, lava release, and steam release. He stole each of these abilities and more from different nations, and in doing so left the original wielders unknowing of this change. For the most part, Naruto had a ton of other abilities that he stole over his time from different nations, but never used them due to how odd they were and how dangerous they could be if they are discovered. But even so he had his secondary weapon to fall back on if things turn bad, and he can even use his own ninja skills that he had while he was jounin. He mastered hand-to-hand combat, strategy, and even had a variety of different elemental moves that he could use on his own. For the most part his alignments are wind, water, and lightning, but he could use the other elements if push comes shove. Naruto knew he was a cage-level shinobi that the world has never seen before, and he knew that his power was envied if people knew whom he was. That is the reason he left his village when they were trying to force him to take a student and breed with the many women in the village. His parents blocked this demand and he was happy about the result as a whole. Naruto looked at the Sharingan and then closed his eyes before opening them to take the form of a biohazard symbol. Time for the troop to make it scene. Docks. Nobunaga and his team were looking out at the docks and saw that at least 6 major ships were ported and there had to be at least 100 men seen around the docks. Shalnark had already got a puppet to infiltrate the grounds to find any information about this whole place and if there is someone worth noticing. All they had to do was sit there and wait for his information and know how they are going to move through the village. After a few minutes Shalnark appeared next to his team and smiled. Well, the boss was right about one thing, there are about 100 people guarding the docks at this moment. From what I guess, each are about the same level as any bandit out in the world. More in the sense they have the same vicious streak as most of the people and are easy hires for anyone who has money. Personally, I think this would be too easy for us to clear out the docks and ransacking the ships that are nearby. From what I can guess they are guarded by some powerful Chunin level people at least, but like I said before mostly bandits. So they are not shinobi then? Shalnark shook his head at Nobunaga's question. No, just your typical bandit with some basic understanding of chakra and thinking it makes them a badass. I see, well then shall we get started then, I'm itching for some action. Nobunaga stood up with the rest of the team ready for this fight. Pakinota used her chakra to summon a silver weapon into her hand and pushed her chakra into the weapon. I'll handle the archers that are on the ships and on the roofs. Shalnark smiled. I'll use my puppet to kill some of the men around us, so hopefully we can sow confusion into the group and start a riot in the bandits. I guess I'll have Blinky out and start smashing some people that come my way then. Nobunaga smiled. Yeah, and my job is pretty simple, of cutting down everyone that gets in our way and hopefully getting the chance to kill the people in the ship. Everyone nodded their head and jumped off the nearby roof and landed in the docking area where 2 guards saw Nobunaga and Pakinota approaching. Hey, who the fuck are you two? Instead of answering, Nobunaga was past the men, their heads flew into the sky while his sword clicked shut. Too easy. He continued forward, ignoring the archer that took aim after seeing the guards killed. But he felt something going through his head and he was sent crashing to the ground from the roof. Pakinota quickly turned her weapon onto another rooftop and fired it after pulling the sliver trigger, piercing the man's head and sending him falling off the roof. They proceeded into the main docking area and saw 3 large ships that are docked and starting to unload their cargo, and they had 3 people standing overlooking the whole thing. One was a black hair man with a black shirt and brown pants and having sharp fangs in his mouth. Another one was wearing a green jumpsuit and was short and bald, and the last one was a fat man wearing a green shirt and jeans. So those the 3? Pakinota nodded her head. Yeah, from what I can sense they are about Chunin in chakra level, but from skills there is no telling at this point. I'm betting on they are strong together, but they look like more a team tactic. In this case, we need to kill one of them and then we can start picking off the rest of them with ease. Alright then, let's get this done then. Nobunaga and Pakunoda appeared in front of the three thugs and they narrowed at them. Who the fuck are you? The man with shaggy hair was glaring at them and had his fangs coming out more. The short man in the jumpsuit scanned their chakra levels and saw that they were at least Jounin level at the most. This was going to be difficult for them, more in the sense that their fourth partner was somewhere else. Maybe distracted by someone that was nearby from what he would guess. Name's Nobunaga and this Pakunoda. We are here to execute you on the orders of the boss. Nobunaga crouched down with his sword at his side and was ready to leap into action. But first he was going to make sure his chakra field was ready. Doing this would ensure the minute they entered his range he would cut them down with ease. Sadly, he knew that Pakunoda could easily kill any of them with one well-placed chakra bullet through the skull or using her own physical strength to even the odds. TCH, I'm rabid dog asshole and I'm going to tear you to shreds. He grew his fangs out and added chakra to them. Nobunaga smirked. Bring it then, I'll put you down in a second. The minute the dog man raced into his range he already unsheathed his sword and with one quick swing decapitated him before sheathing his sword again. Too easy. The fat man smiled. You might have gotten the drop on him, but that same move won't work on us. The man motioned for his partner to take the first move, but the minute he did, one of the bandits behind him impaled the fat guy through the head. Taking his sword out, he quickly aimed it at the short man who used his chakra-enhanced hair to pierce him. The man collapsed to the ground with a thud and showed that he had some kind of red stick with wings hanging out of his neck. What the? Behind him he saw that someone with blonde hair smiling at him. Sorry, I guess you were too fast for my puppet to get to. He then felt something go through his head and collapsed to the ground, scaring the shit out of the thugs. They couldn't believe it, the mercenaries that were higher paid than them were killed with such ease it was ridiculous. Nobunaga smiled and flared his aura at everyone while having his sword ready to swing. Now I get to have some more fun. Pakunoda sighed and using her chakra changed her revolver into a new weapon that took both hands to hold and with great ease was mowing down people with a hail of bullets. Shalnark only found another person to make his puppet and force them to start killing as well. Shizuku on the other hand was in one of the storage areas and she saw that there was a lot of stolen merchandise there that the boss would want. So summoning her trusty blue vacuum with eyes, she started using her chakra to suck up all the merchandise into the vacuum to be released later. But while this is going on she noticed someone was behind her and knew that it was one of the mercs. He was hiding beneath the earth hoping to sneak up on her, but she was not easily fooled by this action. When they appeared behind her and threw a punch, she ducked underneath the attack and slammed her vacuum into the side of their head, sending them to the ground with a thud. She saw it was a large obese man wearing a speedo and looked like poop. She lifted the vacuum's nozzle again and slammed it into the person's head until they were nothing more than a puddle of blood. Then she sucked up the mess and continued on with cleaning out the storage area. So far the deck cleanup was going smoothly and within a few hours they were going to have all the merchandise they needed to keep the boss happy for the next few days. Franklin hands released holes at the end of the tips and was firing chakra bullets at everyone in the front of the house. Finks, Machi and Envy were rushing through the crowd and heading into the manor, knowing that the big guy could handle minor thugs. Upon entering the mansion they saw that the place was expansive and that it would take forever to clear out of potential problems. Alright, so first person to clear their part of the mansion and find the little bastard's private vault wins. Machi sighed and Envy grinned. Sure Finks. Envy laughed, prepared to lose fool. Finks snorted and soon everyone took off in different directions, with Machi taking the bottom floor, Envy taking the east wing, and Finks taking the west wing. Machi was moving through the halls with her special chakra stitches in hand and ready for action. Two thugs appeared from around the corner and charged her, leading to them getting tied up by her chakra stitches and soon with a quick tug sliced them to pieces. This led to her then walking farther into the building. More in a sense, she had dispelled her stitches and now was fighting hand to hand with the rest of the thugs. They were swinging their weapons at them, but they were too slow to catch her. She ducked under their strikes and punched them into the walls or slammed her foot into the side of their head, leading to their skull exploding from the power she was generating from her strike. Finally growing more tired of dealing with these idiots, she summoned chakra scalpels and with ease, started cutting them down with greatest ease. With her speed she was blurring through the halls and moving on to the next target while the previous person's head was falling off their shoulders. By the end of the hall she turned to see about 40 people dead on her end. She sighed and continued through the halls looking for any room that could possibly be Gato's room. Sadly, none of the rooms were, but she did find the basement and down there she saw something that disgusted her. It was a torture chamber where she could see it was meant to torture not just people for information, but to mutilate the bodies of the women. Hell, she saw several corpses in the corner ranging from middle-aged to as young as 17, and this made her angry. But she heard whimpering and in the corner she saw a cell with some women that had not been tortured yet. The youngest was 8 years old and she was terrified of the woman with pink hair and wondering what she was going to do to them. Walking up to the cage, she pushed Chakra into her hand and ripped the cage door off inside. "You're all free to go. Head out the front door and my friend will protect you while we mop up the rest of the people inside." They hesitated at first, but they eventually ran out the cage, but one of the women turned to her. "Thank you, but if you see a woman with black hair and that is mine dead, please, she is my daughter. She was raped multiple times by Gato and his men, and I fear that she is either gone mentally or she is unreachable. If you can't save her, please make it quick." Machi kept a blank face, but said, "I promise I will. After all, I will never turn my back on people who suffer and I could do something to help them. Thank you." Once the woman left and she was sure they were out of range, Machi finally glared at the wall and her eyes glowed with unreal power. Her body was covered in a dark green and black aura that flared around the room, terrifying anyone that could sense or see it. Turning to the wall, she screamed, "Damn you all." She threw her fist into the wall, causing the wall to give way, and soon the entire wall was gone. The destruction left a tunnel leading to the outside of the mansion. Finks had just snapped another man's neck with one hand and twisted another's head all the way around. He felt Machi's chakra and knew that something angered her and knew best to stay out of her way. For the most part, the group knew that something that upset her meant they were not going to live for very long. Plus, with the shaking of the entire mansion, he was sure that she used her special enhanced strength to cause that damage. Never knew where she got it from, but from the way the boss tells them to drop the question, he learned to not try. Turning around, he saw 3 more thugs with swords and sighed, "You guys really are getting annoying. I can't stand around and deal with you losers." He quickly dashed at them and snapped their blades to pieces before twisting their heads around with ease. But one he actually squeezed to the point that it popped with ease. Rushing down the hall, he finally found a large set of double doors and kicked them open. From there he saw a larger than average thug standing there with a smile on his face and a woman with a blank face chained to the desk. He sneered at this, hating the idea of enslavement. While they murdered, killed, and stole without a reason, they did not condone rape or enslavement of other people. "Hey, asshole. Who are you to come and face Gato and his empire?" Fink smirked. "I'm the guy that is going to help bring it to the ground." "Ha. Fool, better men have tried and thanks to my iron body they never succeeded at this." Fink smiled. "Oh really? Then you wouldn't mind if I gave your indestructible body a shot then?" The man laughed. "Oh head fool, I will enjoy watching you fail." Finks grabbed his shoulder and started rotating. "10 should do." He started counting every rotation and soon his hand was covered in chakra and he smiled. "I get the free punch, remember?" The man was sweating at the thought of being hit by a chakra punch. Wait. Without warning, his entire body was destroyed by the punch and his remains splattered the wall. "Damn, what a waste of my cyclone punch." He turned his head and saw Machi standing there, feeling better now. "No, I do not." She walked over to the woman with a collar around her neck. She ran a quick scan over her mind and sighed. She is practically brain dead. Bringing her back would only lead to her killing herself. "So what do we do with her then?" The woman had tears going down her face. "Please kill me. Don't let master come for me again." Machi closed her eyes and hugged the woman, whispering, "I'm sorry I failed to save you." She sent a quick stab through her chest, ending her life in a flash thanks to the chakra scalpel. She then removed the chains and covered her body with one of the curtains. She closed her eyelids and whispered, "The boss will make him pay for everything he has done to you and the people you love." "Machi?" Turning her head, she saw Finks looking concerned. "It's nothing. I just hate seeing this, you know. A person that needs healing, but there is nothing I can do to save her. It makes me angry and leads to me remembering my past." "Really? I understand about the woman, but what is it about your past you hate?" She picked the woman up and carried her in a bridal carry, "A teacher that was a hypocrite and betrayed me when I did what she would not do." She walked past him, "Get into the safe behind the painting and start collecting the stuff we need and bring them back to the boss." "Sure, Machi." Normally he had a smartest remark, but seeing this side of Machi showed him that he really didn't know her well. He never saw her so broken or angry. He knew one thing for sure, her power was greater than the rest knew, and if he was honest, it made him nervous. What was exactly her limits? "Rich, I know that it was a week, but let's say the mission deployment was a week later. Team 7 and Team 8 were at a stalemate. Not only was the mysterious partner giving the group trouble, but Zabuza was pushing Kakashi and Kurenai to the edge at this point. They had no chance against him one-on-one but two-on-one, and they were doing better at this point. Haku, the man in the mirrors, was narrowing his eyes at the Uchiha boy. He had done something that was disgusting. He had used his friends as a human meat shield to save his own hide. Basically, he used his Kawarimi jutsu and swapped places with the boy with the dog, and he took all the needles into his body. Naruto was furious about him doing this and was ready to deck the asshole for it, but focused on the enemy in front of them. "You are truly scum, Uchiha." Sasuke smirked. "He should be happy being of use to me, an elite." Haku was about to throw more senbons into the child, but sensed something on the outside of his mirrors and approaching with great speed. Having no choice broke off the connection of the mirrors and retreated away from the teens. Standing there was a small teen with a black coat covering his mouth. He was standing there looking at him with boredom written on his face. You dodged quick impressive reflexes. I'm surprised you snuck up on me with there only being one entrance on the bridge. Well, funny thing about that, behind him was a giant man with a bloodthirsty smile on his face. We just climbed the side of the bridge and got behind you, nothing special really. Yes, seriously, out of the mist band came out of the mist. You all are too low to sense us, let alone fighting us on equal footing. Enough, we need to get to work. After all, I would love to hear the sound of death floating in the air. Soon Kimberly appeared next to Yuvijin and he growled at the man. Don't give me orders, Kimberly. Oh, is that irritating you, Yuvijin? The man growled like a wild beast, leaving him open for Haku to throw some senbons into his back. But they bounced off his skin, drawing his attention back to him. That annoyed me. He quickly closed the distance between them before slamming his head into the ground, killing him with a single blow. Damn, he was only Chunin level, nothing special. He had a bloodline though. Should you think the boss would have wanted it before this guy died? Yuvijin knew the boss got pissed if he missed a bloodline. No, I know that was an ice user, and from what he told me he already stole that off another user a few years ago. But then I'm safe then. Who the hell are you bastards? The four men turned to the brat and saw Sasuke was glaring at them. Who's the brat? Not sure, I think he is an Uchiha given his family crest on his clothes. But from his chakra levels I would say he is the runt of the leader. Kimberly loved the way he bristled at the comment of being a runt. Doesn't matter, we need to deal with the problem on the other side of the bridge. Alright, let's get to it then. Yuvijin turned his head and saw Kimberly already in range with Zabuza, who was being pinned down by dog summons. From there, he put his hand on his head and smiled. I fool. With a flash his head exploded in a rush of gore and left his body falling to the ground with a thud. He saw his sword falling to the ground and tried to pick it up. But he couldn't, so he shouted, Yuvo, get over here and help me with this sword. Okay, no need to shout, asshole. He appeared next to the white-dressed man and grabbed the blade before putting on his shoulder. What do you want this sword for? That is one of the legendary 7 swords of the mist, so that means we could give it to the boss. Yuvijin smiled. True, plus this will help smooth things over when we tell him we almost robbed him of a bloodline user. They turned their heads to the two jounin facing them and saw that they were Leaf. Yuvijin snorted, knowing the boss ordered them to not kill them and to stay away unless necessary. Worse, they could beat them unconscious, but nothing that was serious damage to their bodies or can't be healed. With the mist gone, the group turned their heads and saw a man standing there with an army of mercenaries waiting. Well, thank you all for taking care of Zabuza. This just made my job much easier. Now I don't have to pay him and I can have my men kill all the men and bring the women to me. He looked at the blonde girl in Kurenai and smirked lustfully. Phaeton sighed. This was annoying. This man had an army of mercenaries, but they were not worth their time. Hour-wise they had enough strength together to give the Konoha team trouble or defeat them. More in the sense that their genin were not real genin yet, they hadn't killed someone yet, and this was their own weakness. Without taking someone's life, this meant they were not ready for war if it ever came their way. They would freeze on the battlefield and most likely get people killed when it happened. Seeing their weak opposition, he turned to Yuvijin and said, go ahead, kill them all, the boss has no interest in keeping him alive. The giant grinned before growling at the opposition in front of him. He charged at them while Gato shouted, kill this man and the person who brings me their head gets triple what I promised. The men cheered and charged at the giant. Kimberly sighed. Those idiots don't realize they are walking into their own funeral at this point. Yuvijin quickly started his slaughter. He ripped through the men with ease. He punched holes in their chests, ripped their heads off, crushed their skulls and swung them around like bats and kicked them off the bridge to their deaths. Gato was growing paler as the large man was killing without hesitance and such efficiency. It got to the point that he had no men left and he was left standing in front of the monster in front of him. Wait. I can give you anything you want. Money, fame, women, you name it. Yuvijin rubbed his chin. Interesting offer. If I was a lesser man I would have taken it. But unfortunately for you, unlike most of my allies, I have no interest in the idea of money. Whatever I want I will take, no questions asked. Without a warning he swung his hand, snapped his neck to the side that the bones in his back were popping through the skin. He then brought his fists down and crushed his body in an vicious double axe handle smash. That's that. He turned to his allies. Looks like we are done here then. Turning his head he saw the Jounin were worried about fighting him and the genin were either out cold or struggling to stand. The Uchiha was glaring at them though. That was my kill, no one denies an Uchiha fool. Without a chance to stop him, Sasuke charged the group. Ban sighed and stepped up and took the kunai through his throat, coughing up some blood. Sasuke expected him to crash to the ground, but instead he just stood there with a bored expression on his face. You done yet, kid? He grabbed his wrist and removed the kunai from his neck before smacking him with a quick chop to the neck. Sasuke. Everyone covered their ears and looked at the annoying pink hair girl. Ban growled. Shut the hell up, brat. God damn it, you are annoying. Kimberly laughed. Not as annoying as some of us though. Ban sighed. Yeah, Kimberly, anyway, let's leave. Before the Konoha team could say or do anything, they saw the fog come back and they disappeared from the area. Kakashi finally collapsed to his knees with Kurenai following him. God damn, that was horrifying. Kurenai nodded her head. Indeed, to think that monster was here of all places and working with other monsters similar to himself. Naruto approached her teacher and the leader of Team 8. Hakushi, who are you guys talking about? The man in the white suit, his name is Kimberly and he is a wanted S-class warrior. He is wanted for war crimes in the land of hot springs and other nations. After he escaped the land, he managed to disappear for a while and then reappear, stealing the explosive release from Iowa. Some say he is working someone of great power and influence, and it looks like there is some truth to that information. Sadly, I don't know the others, but if I had to guess, they all work for the same person. Everyone was shocked. That man was a S-rank criminal and he was running around with some other crew. That was horrifying in their mind, thinking about a man that can control them with ease. Out of the shadows came Team 10, consisting of the Ino Shikaki trio and their sensei Asuma. They were brought in to protect the client's family while they were busy with the bridge and training. Arriving, they had an army of civilians ready to fight to protect their land, but after Kakashi explained what happened, everyone was surprised. What were criminals doing in their land and what are their goals for them? Abandoned church. Naruto saw everyone was back within a week. They managed to do what many failed to do, destroy Gato Enterprises. He didn't show it, but he was happy that his people were able to do this with no trouble. They brought him merchandise from the shipments and explained that they were rare jewels and metals that he could sell for a good profit in the future. At the same time, he was given documents from Finks and Envy, explaining that he was working for someone in the land of rice, but they were unsure who it was. Hearing this, he started reading through the documents while his group was celebrating their success in taking down Gato. That was the easiest job ever. Many agreed with Franklin, the job was too simple. While they didn't want to bite off more than they could chew, it was believed that they were ready for bigger jobs. So why was the boss so interested in Gato and taking down his empire? Tell me about that fool. Was nothing more than a man with money as protection. Yuvijin took a big swig of his beer before throwing the can to the side. I mean seriously, not even the Konoha shinobi there would have given us trouble in the state they were in. True, but they fought Zabuza and his partner prior to this. Kimberly raised a good point, but Yuvijin snorted. Didn't matter if they did or didn't fight a A-class missing shinobi, the fact of the matter is this, they were weak and not worth our time. I'm telling you, if they had Anbu there, maybe then things would better us. Maybe, but you have to remember the boss probably planned our positions to have the highest success rate. Yeah, I get that, but the room was flooded with unimaginable power, the walls were shaking and the floor was cracking under the pressure. The group were shivering in fear and looking up to the source. Naruto's body was glowing blue, but there were tints of black in the mix of it. His aura took the form of a spider with 12 legs with dark red eyes. The room knew that something on those documents angered their leader and they were all ready for the order to kill. While they might not like each other all the time, the truth of the matter was that they were all friends with the boss and all of them would follow him to the ends of the world. That bastard. I will have him and his followers skinned for this. Boss, looking down at Nobunaga, he stared directly at him. They saw his eyes were slitted now, showing that in a rare moment he was furious. What's got you worked up? Naruto took a deep breath before suppressing his aura again. Handing the document to Nobunaga, he read and his eyes widened. Is this for real, boss? Yes, it would seem that Gato's benefactor is the one that we have been searching for this whole time. Yeah, finally we can get some payback. Yuvijin walked up. Okay, seriously, what is going on, Nobunaga? He turned to Yuvijin with a dark look on his face. Orochimaru. The room went silent and everyone glared, including Kimberly. The Snake Sannin had been on their shit list for years now. Not only did he cause them trouble in the past, he killed the original 8 not too long ago before fleeing into the unknown. They originally were not going to bother with someone like him, but after his death they knew that they needed to deal with the fool. So where is the snake? Yuvijin was giving off a large amount of bloodlust, he was ready for some action. The entire group remembered when 8 was recruited and hearing they were killed by that snake was more than they could take. Not only was their death was massive blow since the boss brought them in personally, but Orochimaru experimented on the corpse to try and find its secrets. Finding the mutilated body was the sign that they were to kill him, on top of the fact Naruto slaughtered several bandits the next day in ways that haunted the group. Naruto took their death personally since it was one of the legs that he was in need due to their unique power. No, this doesn't tell us where he is, but might know where he is going to be in the next 2 months. Where will the snake be? Phaeton was eager to skin the man for what he caused the group years ago. The Chunin exam finals, it says here that the funds are going to him to recruit and build an army massive enough to invade Konoha. You're kidding. That man doesn't have the means to do something like that. Even with advanced training in their shinobi, there is no way a couple hundred are going to stand against some of the cage level opponents in the village. True thinks, but it says here the alliance with the sand is going to aid him in this problem. From my guess he is going to use them as a means to increase their forces and force the village into the ground. Kimberly laughed. Ought to give the man credit, he is ambitious for sure. So boss, what are we going to do? Naruto turned to them and smiled. The Chunin exams quickly approach, so we are going to post as a team from Meteor Village coming to participate on their behalf. Phaeton, you will be one of the participants alongside Machi, and Envy the sensei will be Finks. Nobunaga, you will position yourself as a samurai working for free and wanting to explore the village during the Chunin exams, is that clear? The group agreed to the plan, but then Phaeton turned to a corner of the room. We've got company. Naruto nodded his head and looked in the same direction. Come out, we know you are there. Out of the shadows came a group of 6 men, each with varying looks. Naruto could feel they were about Chunin level, so they were beneath him. But he was angry and needed to work off some of steam. Summoning his book to his side, he turned to one of the pages and said, "So you are here to avenge your friends at the dock then?" "Yeah, we got word some mercenaries were attacking, so we decided to check it out. To our surprise, it is a bunch of weaklings." Naruto smiled at the man. "If you are that confident in your assessment, then why don't you try your best in defeating me then?" The group took a step back, knowing that the boss wanted this fight to himself. The group growled and charged at him with one conjuring some kind of cloak in his hand. "Be careful, guys. If he leads these guys, he must be strong." "Shut up, owl." Naruto smiled at them. "Melt away." With 3 quick hand signs, his cheeks bulged and they formed lava in his mouth before firing the stream at the group. Most managed to dodge, but some were caught in the attack. The one with long fingernails and another wrapped up in a streak jacket were melted by the attack. Naruto turned to the rest of the group and saw the 4 of them were surrounding him, and he smiled. "This won't work, fools." Naruto flipped through some pages until he landed on something he needed to end this foolish challenge. But he would get the cloak off the fool that was using it. He might be a unique one like himself and the rest of the troop. 3 of them charged, but Naruto was prepared, and without warning 3 ice pillars appeared out of the ground when he stomped his foot and ran through one hand sign. "Ice style. Ice spears." They choked on their own blood, but then eventually passed away. Naruto closed his book, forcing the spikes to disappear and leaving him and his troop alone with the man with the cloak. "Tell me, is there anything special about that weapon of yours?" The man sweated but smiled. "Yeah, anything that I wrap in the cloak becomes stored in it, no matter how big or how small or how much of it there is. Let me show you." He charged at him and wrapped him in his cloak. From there he tightened it until it shrunk down to the point that it was tiny. "Interesting ability you have there." Turning around, he was shocked to see the same man standing there as if nothing happened. "How? Shadow clone's very useful in tight situations, no?" The man, seeing his cloak is busy, threw a punch at him, but Naruto blocked with his book with his hand touching the handprint side. There was a minor glow around the book, but then it faded away. Naruto smiled. "F successful." The cloak dissipated and his shadow clone dispelled itself. "What did you do to me?" Naruto smirked. "I stole your ability. I liked it so much I had to have it." Seeing himself in trouble, the man pushed chakra into his feet and tried to take off, but before he could make for the exit, he was beheaded by Naruto with a quick swipe of his hand. Seeing all the corpses, Naruto smiled. "I have a great way to spread our name and spread fear throughout the land." Everyone smiled. This was going to be epic then. At the bridge, 2 days later, everyone was horrified. Sitting on the bridge was 6 corpses of people that were bandits. But not just any bandits, the group known as the Shadow Beasts. It was rumored that they were a class band of monsters working for Gato, or the highest bidder. However, each of them were slaughtered, while some were missing body parts, others were burnt or melted beyond recognition. However, the thing that horrified everyone more was the sign that was found on one of the corpses. It was a spider with 12 legs and a number on its back. "This can't be." Kakashi was horrified. They were here, they had been the ones on the bridge. "Sensei, who did this?" Looking to Naruto, he frowned. "The Phantom Troop, we need to report to the Hokage now." Everyone doubled time. This event set in motion the rise of the most notorious bandits the world would ever see. Ringing was going off in a small bedroom consisting of a bed and a desk. The room itself was bland, with nothing really standing out other than the boy lying underneath the covers. He was staring at the ceiling, wondering about life and what was going on lately. He could not feel the emotion of joy or anger about certain things, such as doing awful in school or having no real friends. However, this boy didn't bother thinking too much about it. This stuff was for those that actually cared about insignificant things, while he was busy doing other things to deal with the day, like making sure he got dressed and ready to go. Summoning some power, he turned off his alarm clock and then levitated his clothes to him. Naruto, the blonde hair boy in the room, was what many would call a psychic. He had the power to manipulate the world around him and change things to his suiting. While he had no interest in manipulating the world around him, he did make sure his powers were used during the times of need or when he was too lazy to not do it. Especially considering he knew of the spirits and monsters that existed in this world that were aiming to deal with him. Naruto wasn't sure how he was compared to other psychics, but he knew that his power was higher than general, since he heard rumors from his teacher that other psychics have to unlock their power through emotional stress of some kind. Well, he was born with his powers activated. His teacher told him while he was strong in his own right, Naruto's own psychic powers eclipse his own without a chance of catching up. Especially considering with a mere thought he could destroy anyone or anything with ease, even things that were not spirits. It was funny, a child outclassed a full-grown adult, and even with his experience, he couldn't do anything against this monster of a student. Walking down in his school uniform, Naruto sees his family sitting at the table waiting for him. One was his mother Kushina, who had long red hair running down her back, and her green dress was covered by her brown apron. His father was sitting at the side of the table with his blue jumpsuit on and his flamed bottom jacket sitting on the back of his chair. Naruto saw his brother sitting next to his father, giving him a small smile. Menma had black spiky hair similar to his own, but he had light purple eyes like his mother. Naruto loved his family, but he was never showed it on his face. When his mother and father were concerned about this, they were introduced to his mentor, who informed them that it's a price that comes with his power. The more his psychic power coming to the surface, the less emotion he could show to everyone around him. It was a price from the trade-off, along with the fact they found out something unusual about Naruto. It turned out that he had another abnormality that scared his parents and disturbed his sibling, since they already thought he was ridiculously powerful. It turned out with a few exercises he performed over the summer, Naruto could now destroy most things in the world with a single punch that he would throw with no effort. This disturbed everyone, and the master even explained he couldn't tell them why this was possible. They took him to a doctor, but the problem was he told them while muscular, he had no real abnormality about him. It was as if something else was generating his new power other than his psychic abilities. So it didn't matter what people did against Naruto, he could destroy them with either his physical strength or he could destroy them with his psychic power. The master warned them thanks to this the supernatural world would come looking for him for different reasons. Although most of them he could deal with, there were a few people who could cause something bad to happen if it isn't monitored properly. He speculated that at full power and uncontrolled, he could tear the entire country of Japan in half with nothing more than a few waves of his hands. Along with his physical strength, which they still didn't know the limit of his power, he could possibly do the same with that as well. So Naruto was warned about this outcome and told to keep an eye out for things that might happen in the near future. Back to the dining room, Naruto finished his general breakfast and put his dishes away and walked out the door with his bag and brother at his side. His brother was considered everything he wasn't: popular, member of the student council, perfect grades, and the most desirable first-year student. Naruto was not known around the school because he never interacted with people and never saw the need to make friends with others. Mostly because he felt they were unnecessary for his generation and he was afraid of hurting them without knowing how to control his strength at points. So to protect those around him, he isolates himself from others and avoids trying to do unnecessary damage. Both brothers were walking down the street, and while Naruto was wondering what was going to happen at school today, his brother, Menma, was thinking something else. He remembered growing up jealous of his brother and his power, but he learned to curb it after meeting his brother's master. He informed him his brother's power is a curse, not a real gift, since he would never have a normal life. Friends would be something out of his reach for fear of being used by them or hurting them without knowing it. Well, he could understand why he was jealous. He knew his brother needed his support more than ever. Especially since the devils in the territory are stirring up trouble for his family, along with the Shinto goddesses that are watching them. While most would consider Kuo to be owned by devils, the truth is that Japan belongs to the Shinto gods and goddesses. They allow them to settle on the grounds with one warning really in mind: don't mess with the yokai or Naruto, and you will be good. It's no secret that Naruto and Menma's parents were once servants of the Shinto goddesses, who are the godparents of both boys. However, when it was revealed his power to them, one of the goddess saw a vision of the future, where if he were upset, then he would destroy the entire country within minutes. Knowing this, anyone that entered the territory was warned beforehand to leave the boy alone or suffer the consequences. Naruto was considered by the devils a prize, and many sought to capture him or recruit him into their peerage. But the minute they were in front of him, something showed up and erased them on the spot or sent them running with their tails between their legs. Well, they didn't know what it was. Naruto knew, and he was sure that they were angry with others coming for him. Arriving at the front gates, Naruto stared blankly at the students in front of him, while his brother put on his best smile, charming the women and angering the men. His brother was known as one of the future princes of the academy, while many wondered how he and his brother were related. They were polar opposites of each other, and that was something many of the guys took advantage of. Well, they would if not for the intervention of the student council, who would punish anyone that would try anything against him. Most bullies learned quick to leave him alone, but others were slow to pick this up and punished for it. "Brother, I will see you during lunch, alright? Meet me in the student council room." Menma gave his brother a smile, hug, and was off to his class. Naruto stood there for a second and then walked off to go behind the gym. Once there Naruto found a snake slithering up to him and he just stared at it for a few seconds. "It would seem you are as punctual as ever," replied the snake in a mountain voice. "Well, it's not surprising, but what do you want?" Naruto was quick to react with his own monotone voice to match the one before him. The snake slowly shifted around until it took its human appearance. It was a small Lolicon who had black X tape over his dot. The little girl had long black hair, was wearing a gothic Lolicon outfit alongside having pointy ears and being barefooted. Ophis was one of the few people in the world Naruto could call a real friend since she approached him a few years ago. She has always been loving and caring to him, in a way understanding what he was going through. While he didn't know it, she explained similar problems he was going through of having immense power and always being stronger than the usual branch of people in the world. Ophis was interested in Naruto because, like herself, he was doing things to find peace and to stay away from people in general. While she saw them as insects, she did have an inkling of understanding that he cared for the safety of people around him. Especially he loved the goddess that watched over him and his family. So out of respect for this, she kept an eye on him at all times since they met and worked hard to make sure he never lost control of his power or strength. She marked him with one of her marks so she would know where he was at all times and never fear losing track of him. There was something else stirring in her chest, but she was unsure of what it was but ignored it for now. "I only came to see how your life has been going, Naruto." He raised an eyebrow at this and nodded. It made sense. "I've been fine, but I have been running into problems of not knowing how to make friends." "You don't need these insects, you have me and that's all you will ever need." Naruto stared at her for a brief second and sighed. It was the same thing with her each time he mentioned something like this. While yes, he did stay away from people he would like to have a friend to talk to and bond with from time to time that wasn't family related. It was one of the reasons why he was so used to Ophis, because she made it interesting if this was the standard of friends. Naruto heard the bell ring and before he could say anything, Ophis turned into a snake again and quickly slid underneath his clothing. This was one thing she always did well with him, she would stay with him throughout the day to see what he saw in the human world. What made it so interesting that he would stick around rather than just join her in the adventures away from this boring existence. Upon arriving in class, Naruto took his seat and started taking notes from the board. He peered over to his right and saw Ria's Gremory and Akeno Hijimija, who were both known as the beauty queens of the school. While Naruto admitted they were pretty, he really didn't feel anything for them. Not on the account of them being devils, but more he felt they had a level of arrogance about their status that was unwarranted. He sighed and continued his work, wondering what interesting things were waiting for him after this boring school day. Lunch. Menma was sitting in the student council room pondering some thoughts. While he was a half-devil now, along with being part of the faith of the Shinto goddesses, he never really considered himself other than human before. With this new experience given to him by Sona, he felt that life was much more interesting compared to his usual life. Especially considering he knew his king was looking out for him rather than trying to recruit him for something like power, like Ria's would. Ria's Gremory, while he didn't hate the girl, he didn't see her as a friend. He was polite to her only out of status and nothing more, otherwise he would never associate with her in an official setting. She mocked her brother one time in front of him and Menma nearly took her head off for it. Sona stopped him and warned Rias to not provoke her peerage again or this would get a message straight to her brother. Then he mentioned that his brother was also the godchild of the Shinto gods and goddess, meaning anything that harms him would be dealt by them. Hell, Sona and her sister had to go to them and beg for her to recruit Menma, which took some serious convincing on their part. Even though they relented the minute she mentioned interest in Naruto, they shot her down and warned her to not harm the boy in any way. While she was confused at first, Menma explained his brother had unusual levels of power, making him a world destroyer. Following this, Sona informed Rias about the turn of events and either started poking around his brother for something interesting or just ignored him completely. More on the lines he liked her leaving him alone, considering the more she poked him the more dangerous the situation got. He knew his brother's powers could slip out at any point and when they do it would be nasty. Especially considering his power could erase her on the spot, sparking a war with the devil race and possibly the rest of the Shinto faction. Menma, there is something I've been meaning to talk to you about. Turning to his black hair, purple-eyed president, he nodded his head. I've noticed your brother seems to be hiding something in his shirt that is radiating power. While I understand that I'm not allowed to bother him, would it be possible for you to investigate this for me? Menma was concerned now. What could his brother have to stir this up this much trouble? He knew for a fact he was not wearing any kind of artifact of some kind before leaving the house, otherwise his parents would have detected it or he would have while on their walk. This meant that something was attaching itself to him when he arrived at school. I'll try looking into it, President, but I can't make any promises. My brother is not the most forthcoming person with information that he considers his own and of no value to everyone else. Sona nodded her head. Unlike most people in this world, she knew Menma loved only two things, and that was the gods of the Shinto religion and his family, mostly his brother. Whatever his older brother did on his free time was his business in his eyes and that he was entitled to that privacy. But at the same time she needed to make sure nothing was coming onto the grounds that could put them or the school in danger. There was a knock at the door. "Come in." Naruto opened the door and saw the student council either looking at him or going back to their work. Saji, a blonde-haired boy, was looking at him with a look that screamed arrogance. "So what's wrong now, Naruto? Someone stole your homework or know where your emotions are?" Before he could laugh, Menma was in front of him with his fist buried in his face. "Don't fuck with my brother." Sona immediately got between the two boys. This was another problem among the council. Saji liked to poke fun at Naruto, and this would lead to Menma taking his anger out on him. Following this, a huge fight would break out, leading to them either almost unleashing their magic or her having to smack them both around. "I could come back later." "No, Naruto, come on in and take Saji's seat since he is done with his work." But President Sona smacked him on the head, sending him to the floor comically and forcing him to leave his chair behind. Naruto blinked at this and just walked up to the chair, sat down, and opened up his bento box full of rice and several assortments of chicken. He took one of the pieces of chicken and ate it with a blank look. Naruto, turning to his brother's king. "Yes. I've been meaning to ask you something." He raised an eyebrow at this before nodding his head. "Why is it the minute you entered the school there seems to be something moving around in your shirt?" Looking down, he saw that Ophis was definitely moving around in his shirt, leading to everyone staring at him. Reaching into his shirt, he pulled out a snake, shocking everyone that he was carrying something like that in the school without fear of getting bit. "This is my friend. She is with me every time I'm in school, but she leaves after school is over. I see, and she is something other than a snake." Naruto nodded his head where he dropped it on the floor. Out of it, a small childlike being came from the snake and smiled at everyone in the room. "Greetings, insects." Ophis saw the blonde-haired boy rushing over to her to scold her. "How dare you disrespect Sona-sama? Who do you think you are?" Naruto summoned some of his psychic powers, and Saji was flung across the room and entering the wall with the greatest of ease. He was moaning in pain. She hates it when people are too close to her. Naruto only threw the boy away because he was sparing him from dying at Ophis's hands. She has killed people and beings just for breathing the same air as her. One time while walking in the park, he saw her behead some poor dumb bum with a single swipe of her hand. Her hand was nowhere near his head, but the whole damn thing blew up in a shower of blood and not a single drop landed on her. "Naruto, please refrain from doing that again." Sona then saw the black-haired girl showing a small smile on her face. "And who are you to order him? He could crush you and the entire school with nothing more than a small thought, and no one would stop him." Sona gritted her teeth but hid her emotions immediately. "Of course I understand this, but I'm asking as a friend of his brother. But you are not his brother's friend, more of his king than anything." Sona felt a tick mark appearing on her head. This brat was annoying and she was one-upping her constantly. "Be that as it may be, I still am asking as a kind and generous king." Snort. "Forgive me for laughing, but you a king, you're an insect to a real royal leader. I've seen them and they would crush you without a second thought." Sona felt her hands crushing her chair's rests. Naruto, seeing where this was going, came up to her and bonked her on the head, in which a large comical bruise appeared on her forehead. She turned to him and a small tear came out of her eyes. "What was that for?" "For being conceited. Now please, behave for me." While not liking the bruise on her head, she bowed her head and walked up next to him. Menma was shocked. His brother did that to him a few years ago and his head caved into the floor. Luckily he was blessed with a strong and durable body, but damn, it still hurt the back of his head. Reaching behind him, he grabbed the spot where he feels some of the knuckle indentation was still fresh. But this unknown girl managed to not only survive the bop from hell, but also stay standing with nothing more than a bruise that was receding on her head. Sona was more disturbed because she had seen her brother's power firsthand. He once ran into a stray devil where with a single easily thrown punch, he destroyed the monster, reducing it to a puddle of goo. Naruto was the strongest physically she had ever seen, with some people never coming close to what he can do with his punches. Even the lightest tap hurt like hell, and that was the case with this little girl. Her taking it and still standing, she was something of great power, and Naruto knew this. That is why he was acting in a way to keep her in line and prevent bloodshed. Sitting back in his chair, Ophis hopped onto his lap and he started petting her head with his one free hand. It would have been adorable if it was not for the fact he was sitting there with a blank look on his face, and so was she. Naruto, looking back over at Sona, he raised an eyebrow. "Yes? You still haven't told us who this is yet?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "I didn't." Naruto sat there in a ponder until it went off in his head. "You're right, I didn't. She says her name is Ophis, dragon god of infinity or something like that." With his piece said, he continued eating his food, not noticing the tension in the room. Sona looked like she was about to have a heart attack, as did Tsubaki, whose glasses fell off her face. Menma and the rest of the peerage were staring in shock at this tiny girl was one of the strongest existences in the entire universe. Saji was getting out of the wall and looking at them with confusion. "Who's Ophis?" Sona turned to Saji, remembering he was a human that was born into devilhood only recently, so of course he didn't know who he was. Ophis is known as one of the strongest being in existence. If she wanted she could erase the entire world within minutes, leaving nothing left standing in her wake. Saji turned pale, realizing that this girl was someone who would have killed him for irritating him too much. Yes, you filthy insects, I'm that person now, please stop gawking, it's growing on my nerves. The petting seemed to come back and was subsiding her after he took his hand off her to grab some extra meat during his last bite. Naruto gathered some rice on his spoon and held it in front of Ophis, who looked at the rice with confusion. But relented and ate it anyway, even though she might not need it, this was the nice thing to do. At least that is what she thought it was. She was unsure about the customs of other beings, no matter how long she had seen them. Naruto, how are you friends with her? Menma knew this was something he had to report to his parents and their godparents, knowing this was major. This was dangerous since his family did have enemies, and if they were to attempt anything against Naruto, then this would provoke Ophis. Said action would lead to Ophis destroying everything in the surrounding area and most likely level the entire city of Kuo or destroying the country of Japan. Naruto would be immune to the attack, but millions of people would be dead before they could realize what happened. Naruto stared at his brother for a second and then responded, we meet when I was first coming to this school. After talking for a bit we bonded in a sense, and then we agreed to meet up whenever we could. Sometimes she is with me during classes or she just visits for a little bit to see how I'm doing. What is your interest in my brother? Menma was staring at the dragon god. She had some reason for being interested in her brother, but he couldn't think what it was. He is special. I've never felt someone from the human race with powers that rival my own. So you want my brother for some hidden agenda? No, I'm here to learn why he is still part of your world. Ophis turned around and continued to enjoy the head petting along with some food that would come her way. While she didn't care for the food at times, it was still a nice feeling. Something was whirling around in her chest at the joy she was feeling from the feeding. Menma figured it was better to let this go, considering she was not wanting to speak more than she has already done. Turning back to his work, he started filling out his paperwork and eating his food. Finishing their lunches, Naruto bid them a good day and walked to his next class. Ophis had turned back into the snake and slithered back underneath his clothing to hide from everyone that would bother her. Entering his class, he saw Rias was talking to her Queen Akeno about something, but he was ignoring them. So they are making their move tomorrow, huh? Yes, Kaneko has confirmation that they are going on a date tomorrow. It should be the best chance to recruit him to the peerage. Akeno put her hand on her face and gave Rias a seductive look. The boys in the room were now blushing from her look, while at the same time the girls were thinking she was so sexy and beautiful. Naruto just ignored her and walked to his desk and opened up his notebook. Opening it, he started to see that they had left off at the 3rd dynasty, so this meant they would fill out the rest of the notes. Akeno, while listening to Rias go on about her plans for the future and what Issei could possess, she was staring at Naruto. It was a hardened look of curiosity and interest. This boy was the one person in the world that seemed to be immune to both her looks and her teasing. It was frustrating to her because he has never shown a sign of emotion in her life. The best she got was him saying hello to him and then walking past her, causing her to feel unsure about herself. While Rias was negative about the boy and his power, there was something about him that she knew was more dangerous than anything that Issei could possibly possess. No matter how powerful a sacred gear, just pure power that someone is born with is greater than what they can do. Those with sacred gears start relying on it too much, and this leads to them becoming weaker than most without their sacred gear to assist them. Naruto seemed to be one of those people, considering he had strength that was unnatural. When she was not busy with her own stuff for the period, she was monitoring Naruto to see what he was up to most of the time. When she saw him take off his shirt once, she was amazed by his overall muscular form and the fact he was little to no fat on his body. However, when he lightly hit a tree, it was obliterated without a chance. It shocked her. This boy had greater power than anyone she had ever seen next to his psychic powers. Naruto felt someone staring at him, so looking behind him he saw Akeno was giving him an imploring look. Wonder what she is bothering me with those looks. Ophis felt the question being asked, but she remained silent. She knew that the girl had some form of crush on him. While it upsetted her to a degree, she was not opposed to it. Lower life forms were attracted to those that were stronger than them and wanted to mate with them. It was the law of nature of reproducing with the most perfect individual you could. The teacher entered the room and all the students sat in their seats and began their lesson. They started studying what was being spoken on the board, along with being introduced to the rest of the class, what was happening in the next few weeks. Time skip. Exiting the school, noticed that Ophis was still with him at this point. It was unusual considering after school is over she usually leaves, but for some reason she is still there in her snake form. Naruto walked off campus and was approaching the nearby forest where Ophis turned back into her childlike form. In the forest, Naruto could tell something was coming for him, but it was something much weaker than herself. You know someone is watching, right? turning to Ophis. Yes, but until they show themselves I won't react. There is no point picking a fight when they are not present, right? Ophis stared at the boy before nodding his head. True, there is no reason to fight a bug when they don't show themselves. Just like that, a spear of light was thrown at Naruto and Ophis, but Naruto crushing the blade with his left hand with ease and then staring at the attacker stopped the attack. The man had silver hair that barely covered his face, he was wearing a black shirt and white long pants, sandals on his feet, and his posture screamed arrogance. Not bad, brat, but you won't be able to fend me off forever. Summoning his black wings, he flew into the sky and summoned 2 more spears. Aiming at the brat in front of him along with a little girl, he threw both spears with great speed and accuracy. He was sure this would kill both of them, but it never made it to its intended target. Naruto once again caught both blades and crushed them with ease. Looking at the man, "Can we hurry up? Any more time wasted and I will miss dinner. My name is Mizuki and you will not have to worry about eating because you're going to die." Summoning another spear, but this time had 4 more spears appear behind him, he fired it at the boy. This time, however, the spears stop a few feet away from him while being covered by some blue glow. In this process he turned the spears around and fired them back at the fallen angel. Mizuki panicked and started flying away from the spears. Upon avoiding his spears, he turns back to the brat to see him floating in front of him. His entire body covered in a blue glow of energy before he held his hand out in front. "I'm tired, please disappear." "Not before you do." Summoning more spears, but this time condensed them into spheres where he fired them at the boy. They exploded, rocking the area around them and covering him in smoke. Mizuki figured he got the brat and was about to fly away, but decided to taunt him a bit. "Tough luck, brat shouldn't have been such a pain in the ass. Now all Leader Rainer has to do is kill Issei, and we can leave this dump of a city." He tried flying away, but he noticed he was not moving. Looking behind him, he saw the boy was still there without a scratch on him, along with the little girl floating next to him. "Can you finish him already? I'm bored." Naruto nodded his head and in seconds closed the distance between them. With a little of his Esper power, he obliterated the man while turning him into a pile of blood. That was boring. Naruto floated back down to the ground and turned off his power. While he hated killing people and thought it was not okay, he felt it was necessary in some cases. Most people are unforgivable and aren't worth caring about. So ending them protects people in the future, and that is all that matters to him. Once he was finished dealing with the remains of Mizuki, Naruto continued on his way home, wondering what his mother was making. Normally she makes ramen for the family, but he had a feeling that was not going to be on the menu tonight. Because it was an important day for the most part, their godparents are coming by for a visit. They were excited to see how much Naruto and Menma had grown over the past few years, and apparently his master was coming with them. Seeing him again would be great considering it had been a few years since he saw him. He was someone that even the supernatural world learned a long time ago not to cross no matter what happens. Entering the house, he saw his parents were setting out the dining table with his mother's red hair flying around while screaming at her husband who was cowering in the corner. He was terrified with the whole perspective that he forgot the importance of today, and it was something his brother was laughing about. Entering the room, he felt Ophis turn back into her snake form and hide herself in his clothes. "Omen, am I late?" Kushina turned to her eldest child and smiled. "No, sweetheart, you're just in time. Anything happened today that was interesting?" Naruto tilted his head and nodded. "Yes, I ran into some fallen angel on the way home and he tried to kill me while talking about another one named Rainer." Kushina was nervous now and Minato was with a straight expression. Menma, however, he knew about the fallen angels in the city, but since his king was not doing anything about them, he felt no need to bother with the information or the problem they might pose. "Are you hurt, son?" Minato was looking him over, even though he knew his child was probably one of the strongest people in the world, it never would hurt to show he cared for his well-being. "I'm fine." He was weak, too weak for me to take seriously. Honestly, the man was easy to deal with when all he did was throw his spears at me hoping they would connect. But he did mention something interesting while he was taunting me. Minato raised an eyebrow. Apparently the boy Issei is being targeted by one of the fallen angels and they are planning on killing for some reason. Menma was on edge, he knew about Issei and how Sona and Riaz were planning on recruiting him, but Riaz was the one be acting on this instead. She was thinking it would be best to play things out and see what happens with Issei. He hated that thought pattern. Honestly, it was annoying thinking she was willing to let him die, all because of some fancy scheme to prove she was right, and he has a powerful sacred gear inside of his body. "Well, I will let the others in the region know. Also your godparents are going to be informed, since I was not aware they let the fallen enter the city recently." Indeed, turning their heads at the new voice, they saw a woman with midnight black hair and a peach skin color. She had large and a bubble ass along with a killer figure to go with those two additions. This is Amaterasu, Menma and Naruto's godmother, while the man standing next to her is Susanoo, and he was their godfather. Both Shinto lords were happy to be the godparents of both of them, but the strangest thing for people to know is that they put the boys into their care, not for the love they wanted to shower, but more along the lines of wanting to deal with the future issues of powerful Spears users, since they are a rarity in the world. Behind them was a young man that was most likely in his 20s with red hair and red eyes, while wearing black fur hooded jacket, jeans, and a pair of sneakers. This is K, and he is considered one of the strongest psychic users in the world, with the power to shift any part of his power into an element with ease. When he met Naruto, he was about to enter this fraud's office and try to figure out his problems with his powers. Thanks to meeting him, they talked, and eventually it led to Naruto having a real teacher to help him control his powers and learn more about the world around him. He was a kind person to those that knew him well, but to those that were his enemies, he is known as the man that erased more species than any other. He is feared by all for his amazing power and the rage that comes with it, where two cases come to mind to those that know him. One of the major cases was the incident when the devils started raping and killing the Nico race in the underworld. He was alerted to this by Inari, and upon arriving he saw this disgusting display. He managed to save some of the race from being killed or worse, but he only saved about 15% of the race as a whole. When he cornered the devils about this, they responded that it was their right since they killed one of their own, leading to him slaughtering most of the clans that were present and even wiping out some of the branches to go with it. So it went from 72 to about 36 in an instant. Most after seeing this knew to steer clear of the Yokai faction and to avoid him like the plague. Hell Surzich made it a law to not antagonize him or his allies, or risk being executed or being sold to him to spare their lives. The only other case of this was when a couple of devils came to the human world and decided to do something that nearly started a war. There was a girl about the age of 15 where he was 17, and she was a petite-looking girl. They were extremely close, and he cherished their friendship for the most part. That was until she was found by the devils and raped and killed. Upon discovering this, he ignited in a rage that nearly tore Tokyo apart and almost started a war with the Yokai faction upon discovering it was devils that did this to her. Michael and Azazel were even thrown through a loop because some of their members were getting scared at the power he was releasing and begged Surzich to just give him what he wants and just hand over the devils that did this, thus he did at the protest of the council. They were slaughtered and erased from the history books they marked as the ones that were forgotten. Since then, before he met Naruto, he traveled around barely with any emotions flowing out of his body and dreaming of a time he would have confessed his feelings to the girl that stole his heart and took it to heaven with her. Naruto bowed to his teacher and he nodded his head. However, Inari showed up as well in her red and white fox form glory and she started smothering Naruto with no end in sight. His head was pushed into her where he started experiencing unknown feelings and thoughts. I feel my air starting to fade away, but at the same time, I want to stay in this comfortable position. I wonder why. Sister, please behave and put down Naruto, would you? Amaterasu was someone that could understand her sister's need to hug him. He was adorable and very handsome in his own right. If she was not his godmother, she might be doing the same thing. You are mean to me, sister. Inari released Naruto and he struggled to get his bearings. Kei appeared behind him and assisted with the process of his feet getting back under him. He nodded to his teacher and he smiled back at him, thus prompting Naruto to smile as well. It was discovered by them that small things like smiling and sometimes expressing emotions helped the process of dealing with the world around them and lessened the time where they would lose control of their powers. So what is this about fallen angels in the city? Well, I'm guessing they are here for the boy because of the sacred gear he has inside of him. Indeed, Kushina, but what is so great that they would be willing to risk it in the hands of the devils and crossing us? Inari sighed and could not think of a thing while her siblings were in the same boat. Kei honestly didn't care, the boy was a target and that meant they needed to either decide to deal with him now or let him be recruited as soon as he was dead. Really, there is no avoiding this question. What do we do about the kid in general? There is no real choice at this point, we just let things run their course and pray for the best. Kei sighed, figured this would be the case. After all, he had done the same thing in the past with some past enemies and allies, and things turned out great. Okay, then, it's agreed. Kei felt something coming out of Naruto's shirt, but he made no mention of it. It was his secret and if he was keeping it then there is a good reason for it and not worth bothering. Plus, unwanted attention was something Naruto hated more than people wasting his time doing stupid stuff in front of him. The goddess stayed for dinner while his teacher did as well, and it was an enjoyable evening to the point that Naruto even smiled more than usual, making the room feel less tense than it normally would. Naruto went to be happy that night, but he saw that Ophis was still with him, so he finally had a discussion with her about her staying at his side today. But while this was going on, Menma was downstairs explaining what happened at school today and finding out that Naruto had made a friend and this person was Ophis. Naturally, the goddess and gods were worried and his parents were terrified, but Kei knew that this was nothing new. Whenever there was someone like Naruto, she always took a personal interest in them, no matter what, just because of the level of their power. Potentially I think she is planning on recruiting him to her cause. Everyone stared at Kay knowing he had the most experience with the dragon and some of the power players in the supernatural world. She has been at a standstill with Great Red for years now and she is gathering forces to help her take him out. Doing this she would use Naruto to assist in this endeavor and then after doing it would reward him for his success. That's insane. Even if Naruto is strong like that, there is no way he could match that monster. Kay sighed. This was uncomfortable as hell for him, but it was something he had to lay out. Look, whether you want to believe it or not, the truth of the matter is Naruto is potentially one of the strongest in the world at this point, and push comes shove he will one day even match those two. The only thing we can do is make sure his power doesn't get out of control yet and hope she doesn't try anything stupid. Wait, isn't she still with him? Menma was terrified when the room got deathly quiet and they actually managed to use a rune to listen into his brother's room. Why are you still, Ophis? Simple, I want to talk to you about something that I need done. What? There is a lot coming into play soon and I fear the world is about to reach a breaking point for a war. I want you to be the one that decides the fate of this world. Why would you care? Didn't you say it yourself? This world holds no interest in your mind. True, however, I do know that with your strength you will become the will of Earth itself and soon the protector of the human race. Then you will have the power to really change the course of existence. What do you mean? There was a sound of a portal opening up. Some other time, Naruto, but know that your destiny is coming and soon you will join the group that have been known as Universe Destroyers. The portal closed and everyone could breathe calmly since that meant she was gone. They wondered what was going on with her and what the future has to hold. Next day, date. Naruto was bored. Today he decided on his day off he would go to the anime store and pick up the next copies of some DVDs and manga that had come out recently. Doing this he would also take a detour to check out some of the new stuff on the market and maybe some of the video games. While he was powerful he did enjoy having something to do other than train and do school work. Plus using his powers gets boring after a while and sometimes he just wanted to do things the normal way considering it made his life almost like everybody else around him. Sadly for him, he ran into a problem right away. There was a Sei standing there near the center of a store he was interested in with a black hair purple eye girl. He never saw her before, but he could feel the aura from her and think, another fallen angel. Naruto saw the brown hair boy didn't know and he was being led on. While he did agree with everyone that it was better to let things progress naturally, he wanted to see how things truly unfold. So he stealthily followed them through town until he arrived at the water fountain with them and then she said, "Would you die for me?" Then it happened like lightning. She changed out of her outfit and put a holy spear through his stomach. He coughed up some blood and left while taunting the child with the fact she killed him for his sacred gear. Naruto sighed. She didn't sense him showing that she was weak like the silver hair man, so either she was only slightly stronger than him or she was just ranked higher than him by some supreme command. Walking away he could feel Rias enter the area so he knew he was in some decent hands now. Walking out of the forest he saw something was there in the near front. It was some kind of demonic being. It had the face and upper body of a human, but it had fangs, red eyes, and a lower torso comprised of a spider. They were feeding on human corpses of young females, showing that this being was male in nature. Another human has wandered into my net. He smiled sadistically hoping to scare the child. How boring, I don't have time for this today. Naruto sighed and dropped his bags bracing for the attack. Don't worry, you won't have to worry about anything because you will be dead, brat. He leapt at him and threw a hard right hook at the teenager, but when he hit him nothing happened. It didn't even turn his head and he was staring at him with those blank eyes. Well, that was disappointing. The spider demon snarled and started gathering more of his magic. Disappointing, I will show you my full power and crush you like the bug you are. Naruto saw his body was becoming more demonic until he took the form of a giant black widow spider with its jaws oozing some kind of venom. In the tree was Kaneko Taoju, who was a petite teenage girl with white hair and golden cat-like eyes. She looked more like a cat rather than a normal young teenage girl. Her job was to make sure the date went off like it should, but when she saw Naruto watching she suspected he was well aware what was going on since he didn't rush in to help the teen. Especially grew interesting when he walked away from the pervert and just left him dying, as if he knew what was going to happen. But he was now facing a mid-class devil threat and it seemed he was about to really get into some trouble. Now fear the might of the black spider whose venom is so powerful that no being can survive my bite. I will rip you to. Naruto closed the distance and threw a lazy punch and soon the entire spider exploded in a shower of blood and guts. Kaneko was terrified. She knew he was in great shape and was protected by the Shinto faction, but seeing this was insane. This is something Rias needed to hear about because this was out of the blue terrifying. What kind of monster was he? Naruto picked up his bag again and proceeded back into town. After all, he still had time to check out some more stuff in some of the stores. This is not knowing that his future was about to get very interesting in the next few months, with him learning the true meaning of his powers. Kakashi and the other teams had made a mad dash back to Konoha in fear of being tracked. Not by the mercenaries but by the people who were in Wave, the Phantom Troop. While not as infamous as most groups, they are feared for good reason and more. The discovery that Kimberly might be a member of this group raised their status from petty thefts and murderers to that of the Akatsuki, with their ruthless personalities and violent streak. Upon passing the gate they made it to the Hokage's office and confronted Minato, a blonde-haired man with blue eyes and wearing a white cloak around his shoulders, sitting doing paperwork. Next to him was his wife who had long red hair and was wearing a kunoichi outfit with mesh shirt. While being a mother of two and growing older, she was still considered one of the sexiest women in Konoha. "Kakashi, I didn't expect you back for another day, what's wrong?" Kakashi got his breath back. "Sir, we need to report on Wave, we saw something that you need to know." Turning to the genin he said, "All of you are to leave this office until you are ordered to return to write your reports. Sasuke, we will discuss your actions on the bridge later as well." The team snorted and left the room, while the rest left to think about their first encounter with a serious set of enemies on what was supposed to be a simple mission. Seeing them gone, Kakashi began. "We arrived in Wave with the other teams to back us up but ran into Zabuza when he was working for Gato." "Zabuza? Why didn't you retreat?" "Well, Kurenai and I managed to take him down, but then his masked accomplice tricked us with a hunter nin routine and escaped with him. But then we sent the request for backup with Team 10 showing up a day later. From this point, we were training to be ready for the next fight, but upon clashing with Zabuza and his accomplice again we ran into Kimberly." "Kimberly? Don't tell me you let the genin fight him." Minato was shocked, he was someone he met in the previous war. That man was a monster and seemed to get off on the idea of killing and dying. It was ecstasy to him. Defeating him and capturing him was what led to his status of SS class, but it was one battle he never wanted to repeat again. They didn't fight him but he was with someone else. There was a large man wearing a bearskin top and cloth around his waist, along with long grey hair. He was like a savage beast ready to pounce and his physical strength was out of this world. Next to him was a grey-haired man with red eyes wearing a red jacket and red pants that seemed to be bored out of his mind. There was someone else there but he stayed in the shadows so I never got a good look at him and neither did anyone else. From there, we managed to gather they were there to kill Gato and raid his empire. The villagers confirmed that everyone was either freed from the mansion that he was living in or they were dead and decorating the walls with their blood. I see, that is scary to think about. Who do you think he is working for then?" "That's just it, we found out on the bridge and that hastened my retreat in the need to tell you about this. We had managed to avoid confrontation for the most part other than Sasuke charging the red jacket wearing man and stabbing him in the throat. The surprising thing is that he survived that attack and when he pulled the kunai out he was healing already. What a healing factor. Yes, Kushina-senpai, but the worst is the bridge, it was covered in the corpses of the shadow beasts. The bandits that were modified by Orochimaru." Kakashi was shocked by this information. "Oh, Jiraiya was hunting down leads of his old teammate and managed to learn about him experimenting on the men that were called the Shadow Beast. From there he said that they were each specialized for different kinds of group fighting." "I see, but yes, they were slaughtered and one of the corpses had a spider mark with 12 legs and a number in the center of the back. From there, I saw it was the mark of the Phantom Troop, meaning that they killed the Shadow Beasts and we suspect that Kimberly might be a member of their group. This is bad." Minato crossed his hands in front of his face. "If he really is part of this group, we can expect them to be about the same level as this man or stronger. Their leader must be someone even Kimberly believes in, considering that man rarely follows anyone in this world that he views as a hypocrite in this case. True, sensei. But knowing this, I would like to report that we might need to raise their threat evaluation from this point. Indeed, given the slaughter of the bridge and the death of the Shadow Beasts, they are definitely higher than A class for sure. They would have to be the same rank as S class then." Minato wrote down this information on a piece of paper and handed to an Anbu to take it and have it logged into the bingo book soon. "Sensei," turning his attention back to his student he asked, "how goes the search for Naruto?" Minato gained a sad look and Kushina was nearly in tears. "We've still not found him yet. No help to Jiraiya, I assure you, that bastard is spending more time looking for his teammate and giving me lies that he has no leads." "Sensei, did you ever find out why he left?" Kakashi always thought that was the greatest puzzle. Naruto had everything, prodigy-like status, money, fame, women wanting to be with him, a family that loved him, and the idea of him being the next Hokage. But just one day he disappeared, leaving behind his headband and having him marked as a missing nin with a bounty of A class and returned alive to their village. Kakashi wondered what happened in this time to change him. If you must know, it started about the time that his younger siblings were about 6 and Naruto was 10. Flashback begins. The day Minato was sitting in the dining room with his wife after having put their daughters to bed and Naruto returning from his 5th C-class mission this month. In front of them was Jiraiya in his traditional long white hair and weird outfit he wore. "So sensei, what did you want to talk about?" Did the elder toad had a vision? Minato looked up and frowned at him, he was not liking where this conversation was going. He foretold a future that was in the hands of a child with great power and skill. Blessed with the mark of a demon and the fastest in existence. Kid, that means either Menma or your daughter has to be the child that will save this world. Sensei, that is not true. You know for a fact that could mean Naruto as well. Please brat, I don't know why the kid is Chunin now. He is not as talented or gifted as people make him out to be. He is dead weight to you and your family, and I think it would be better you cut ties with him. Minato narrowed his eyes at his teacher, not knowing that his son was listening in on the conversation with no emotion. I be careful with your next few words, sensei, because it could be the difference between me killing you or having my wife do it to you. Believe me, she will tear you to pieces and slowly torture your soul. Jiraiya shivered at his tone but held firm. I mean Akaki. That kid is always trying to take your attention, leading to you slacking off in work and Kushina having to cater to him as well. For your information, Naruto actually helps me work through the paperwork and only deals with the minor stuff that is not S-class information. At the same time, I know for a fact Kushina loves spending time teaching him how to cook and take care of himself and his siblings. You shouldn't judge him on the outside. Damn it, brat, listen to me. The kid is distracting you from the future heroes of this world, and it would be better you pretend he didn't exist in the first place. Naruto felt his soul be crushed and left the room, not allowing either of them to know he was there. But Minato, hearing this comment, finally broke his patience. Leave. What? I said leave and don't come back. As of this moment you are not my kid's godfather anymore. Leave and do not return unless you have serious issues, got it? Jiraiya tried to say something, but a dark red aura appeared behind him and saw it was Kushina with her hair flaring around her. 3 seconds, asshole. Without warning he was gone in a gust of wind, leaving the parents exhausted. Minato. Don't worry, we are going to love our children equally and not make discrimination to them. I thought so, dear, I love you. Minato hugged and kissed his wife. I love you too. Flashback ends. After that day we noticed Naruto's attitude and attention seemed off in the distance, leading to a week later he left the village. When this happened, Tsunade came in and heard what her teammate thought about him, and without warning she beat him so badly he was in the hospital for a month. At the same time, we told him to stay away from our kids, other than when they were allowed to have their own summonings. He gave them the contract, but refused to spend time with the man that bad-mouthed their brother. I see. Well sir, I hope you find him soon and can explain to him. I will go and make my report. Come along, Kurenai, Asuma. When they left the room, Kushina hugged her husband tightly and he returned the hug. We hope so as well, Kakashi. 2 weeks later, since the fight in Wave Team 7, 8, and 10 had been stepping up their training for the Chunin exams coming up. For the most part they wanted their students ready for the battles to come in the near future. But in parts, they wanted them ready in case something was coming their way in the near future, especially with the likes of the Phantom Troop running around. Most would think they wouldn't worry about them, but since they saw their faces and can ID them, they knew they might come for them soon. So to prepare for this they started training the students more rigorously than before. Well, at least Team 8 and 10 were receiving full training for the team. Team 7 was broken down into cases of having Kakashi telling Naruto that she needs more control and sends her off to do stuff that was controlled based. Hearing this pissed her off again, and she demanded that he either take her training seriously or she would find someone that would. Kakashi called her bluff and told her that she was doing this until he deemed her ready for more advanced material, and if she didn't, then he would have her for insubordination. She accepted the challenge, stating that if he wanted to do that then to go ahead and do it because she was going to find her brother and his team to train with in this case. Kakashi tried to tell Minato, but the minute he checked with his daughter, he warned Kakashi to not neglect the rest of his team or he would have him removed from training period. Sakura, well, she was blowing off her training to try to impress Sasuke and get a date with him. Sasuke was training under Kakashi, but in the end he was not making much progress thanks to him over relying on his Sharingan. Naruto saw mass improvements in her training with her brother Menma. He looked like their older brother, only his hair was red spiked and he had purple eyes. He settled for a tight black top and loose-fitting bottoms with sandals. Menma was different from his sister, focusing more on Taijutsu and ninjutsu and specializing with sealing, while his sister was more of a Kenjutsu user with some ninjutsu to counter and some sealing. Following the training and their introduction to the Chunin exams, Naruto knew she was about Jounin level. If she had more experience, however, at this moment without it, she was about Chunin already. Her brother was in the same boat and showed amazing aptitude in using their father's jutsu, the Rasengan. His teammates was some pale kid named Sai and a girl named Yakumo. Both of them were considered prodigies in their own right and trained harder than most of the genin in the village. From this standpoint, next to herself, she knew that they were the strongest individually, but as a team they were the strongest team, even above Team 9. After receiving the signet sheets a few weeks early, they decided to enter the exam, and both sister and brother were walking through the village until they heard Sakura screeching and saw her chasing a couple of kids. So following them by the rooftop they saw the child ran into some kind in a black cat suit, wearing makeup on his face, accompanied by a blonde girl with 4 pigtails and holding a giant foldable fan. The catsuit teen was holding the child up by his scarf and yelling at him. "Kuro, come on, there is no point in drawing attention to us. What if he hears about you doing this? Don't worry about it, Tamari, this won't take long." Before he could hit the kid he felt a rock hit his hand. Dropping the kid he growled at Sasuke sitting in a tree looking down on them. "Who are you and why are you in our village?" Naruto and Menma rolled their eyes at him trying to be some kind of badass. "Sasuke-kun." Sakura had hearts in her eyes, convinced that he was going to beat the shit out of the people in front of them. "Who is it to you, asshole?" Kankuro was angry, not only did the kid rudely insult him and bump into him, but now he was dealing with some kind of princely bastard in this village. "Take it easy, brother." Tamari felt a shiver go up her back and saw 2 more Konoha genin showing up, one had blonde hair and pigtails, while the other had spiky red hair. The boy was cute and she had to admit the girl wasn't too bad looking either. Might not love the jumpsuit, but she was pretty in her own right. More Konoha brats. Kankuro was about to reach for his puppet trap, but a growly voice said, "Kankuro, that is enough." Both teens turned to see a red-haired teen with a gourd on his back hanging upside down from the tree underneath the Uchiha. He shoeshined to their side and glared at him. "You're a disgrace to our village." "Alright," he growled, "shut up or I will kill you." Turning to the teens in front of him he asked, "Who are you?" Sasuke stepped up to answer, but he cut him off, "Not you weakling, those two. Mother senses great power from both of you." Menma realized what he was from his comment. It was not uncommon for a demon like one of the tailed beasts to corrupt their container if given the right circumstances. So this meant he was probably a container for the one tail, since they both know that was the only tailed beast from Suna. "Name's Menma and this is my sister Naruko, we are children of the 4th Hokage and Kishina Uzumaki." Kankuro paled and so did Tamari when she saw her brother gain a bloodthirsty grin on his face. "Mother wants your blood, Uzumaki's, and she will get it soon." He proceeded to lead his team into town and this let Menma and Naruko release a sigh of relief. Facing an unstable demon container was dangerous, one minute they are calm and then the next they are lashing out at everyone in sight. Sasuke growled at them, "Don't get in my way again, Menma." Menma glared at him, "Don't pick fights you can't win, Dumbus." Both were glaring at each other, but Naruto finished the problem. "Come on, brother, this is not the time to start picking fights. Sasuke is not worth your time, remember?" "Yeah, but no, this Uchiha, try anything with my sister and I will kill you, consequences be damned." Sasuke smirked, "I'm an Uchiha regardless of your father, I can do as I please, so if I want to take your stupid sister I will." Menma was about to retort, but Sasuke found himself flat on his ass after a vicious punch to the nose. "Sasuke-kun. You bitch." Sakura charged Naruto who hit Sasuke, but she ducked her strike and laid her out with a single punch to the stomach. "Idiot, let's go, brother." Both walked away from the scene, never noticing people watching them. Out of the shadows came Phaeton and Machi. "They aren't half bad for their age." Phaeton snorted, "Yeah, but they are not at our level." "I know that, Phaeton, but you got to admit for their village and their standing they have good heads on their shoulders and are not clouded." "True, but the boss is better than them." Machi raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" "Never mind, let's get back to the hotel room before the others start fighting again." Phaeton was gone in a blur and Machi sighed before looking at the rest of the village. "So this is really her home, huh? Can't say I wouldn't have loved living her, but the boss proved he is greater than them. After all, he doesn't care who I am or what I've done like you did, traitorous bitch." She quickly dashed out of range before making back to the hotel room to catch up on some sleep. Next day, the troop in the village were having a boring time looking at the sights when they noticed there is not much to do until the Chunin exams. They had fake passports to get into the tournament and fake they were shinobi from Meteor Village. Sadly, this put them under surveillance, considering they came from a place that didn't really exist and that they were not trusting. Nobunaga, however, passed himself off as someone from the Land of Iron, which he was, but that was a story for another time. Binks was busy scouring the town looking for stuff to do and things to keep him from breaking necks. Sadly, there was not much until he ran into a bar that was filled with jounin. Entering the joint, he ordered a round of drinks for himself and started drinking. That was until he was approached by a purple hair woman wearing a trench coat and fishnet shirt and skirt while having a dango stick in her mouth. "Hey there, haven't seen you in the village before." Finks looked at her for a second and replied, "Yeah, I'm new to these parts, only here for my genin to compete." She smiled at this and sat down next to him. "Interesting, where you from then?" "Meteor Village." She was stunned, so this was the unknown Meteor team that she heard about. From some of the people in the village it was rumored that they had a team but was unsure how true it was. Sometimes bandits enter and pretend they are from there, but the truth is that they had the paperwork to prove it, which is rare. "Interesting, so where are your genin?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Probably exploring the village, I guess. I was doing that until I saw this bar and decided to have a couple of drinks." She smiled and put her arm around his shoulder. Then why don't you join me and my friends, it would be nice to have a new face enter our group. Finks cringed at the idea of socializing with people from a village. He was not the most sociable person of the group. I really should, she dragged him off his stool and sat him down at their table where he saw a group of jounin sitting there. So Anko, who is your new friend here? Anko smiled. This is the guy that entered his team under the alliance of Meteor Village. Really, so why did you guys enter if you don't mind me asking? Turning his head he looked at a man with a beard and is smoking a cigarette in his mouth. We decided that we needed some cash coming in, so our home wanted us to enter some of our strongest warriors. Oh really, then this is going to be such a youthful event. Finks raised an eyebrow at an odd man with large eyebrows, green jumpsuit and jacket, and wearing orange leg warmers. Youth? Don't get him started please. Guy has been that way as long as we've known him, and he has a mini-me that is just like him. Finks heard what the man with grey hair and a mask said and decided against making another comment. So since you guys are asking, you all have teams you're entering? Yeah, I'm entering my team for the exams. Everyone turned to Kakashi and Asuma snorted. No offense, but the only person on your team ready to become Chunin is Naruto. After all, the Uchiha is too arrogant and Sakura, well, she is weaker than Ino, and that's saying something. Don't worry about them, Sasuke is Chunin level already and Sakura is a great support fighter for him. Naruto on the other hand, I worry that she might turn out like her brother if she continues to fight with her teammates. Kurenai and Anko narrowed their eyes. Careful with your words, Kakashi, you know what happens to people that speak ill of Naruto. Finks raised an eyebrow. Say, who is this Naruto you guys are talking about? The group went silent for a minute, but then Asuma spoke up. Naruto is the oldest child of the Hokage and his wife. He was hailed as a prodigy the village has never seen. Graduating from the academy at an early age and becoming a jounin by the time these kids became genin. He was feared for his speed and power, and rumor was he was being groomed into being the next Hokage after Minato and might have replaced him at some point. Sadly, things didn't turn out well for everyone in the mix. What happened? Well, there was an argument over some kind of prophecy foretold by some powerful ancient toads, but from what I heard the argument derived from how they were going to treat their children from then on. Their former godfather wanted him to be discredited and ignored while his parents disagreed. Soon he started changing and within a week gone without a trace. I see, what did he look like? I've been all over the place and might have seen him in passing. Anko shrugged. He has blonde spiky hair, blue eyes that are darker than his father's, whisker marks on his cheeks, and has a bit of a tan complexion. Finks didn't show it, but he was shocked that they just described a boss to him. Truth is that most of the group didn't know their boss's past. Well, he suspected a few of them might know more than others, but he knew for a fact the boss never talked about it. More, he never said anything about it, and within time he just never bothered to ask if anyone was interested. To him the past was irrelevant and had no meaning in his life. But they are right about one thing, the boss had a powerful family and rich family too, so why did he abandon them then? It makes no sense. Finks saw Phaeton and Machi walk into the bar. See, told you he was drinking. Yeah, you were right and I was wrong. Both of them approached. Hello my genin. Machi bristled slightly at the comment and Phaeton showed no reaction to the name. Finks smirked, so what can I do for you guys? Well, we wanted to find you and drag you back to our place. We need to talk about some stuff we want to do about the upcoming exam. Fine, let's go then. Finks finished his drink and waved at the jounin. See you guys at the exam. He walked out of the bar and Anko narrowed her eyes at him and his genin. Something was definitely not right. Well, she could not tell exactly how much they were hiding, something was off about them. Those kids are going to be dangerous. What you mean, Anko? Turning to Asuma she said. Those two that showed up, they are way beyond genin. I can tell that much, but how much power they got I can only make an estimate. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I didn't feel anything like that. Are you sure you're not overreacting to them? I'm sure, I know for a fact those kids are stronger than Chunin, maybe even Jounin. You might want to warn your teams to avoid them at all costs, no point in getting killed when they don't need to be. The group sobered up and knew Anko was serious. She rarely was like this, and this meant she was dead serious about the threats those two showed. The exams are going to be interesting, that is for sure. But the troop in the hotel room, Finks was in deep thought, leading to Nobunaga noticing and asking, okay, what's eating you? Nothing much, just thinking about some stuff that I learned today. That is? Turning to Machi and Phaeton he then asked, how much of the boss's past do we even know? The three of them looked at each other and Nobunaga sighed. I knew he was a former shinobi, but that is it. Machi nodded her head, but then they noticed Phaeton was not saying anything. Phaeton? Turning to Finks he sighed. I knew boss was born here and he was once a shinobi here. Finks was shocked. How much else of his past do you know about? Phaeton rolled his shoulders. The reason he left and the reason he is strong on top of the secret to his book. The group nodded their head and Nobunaga asked, why are you interested, Finks? He shrugged his shoulders. I was curious because I think our boss name was Naruto Namikaze, and he is the son of the Hokage and his wife and the older sibling of the girl that you saw on the bridge. I see that would explain why he didn't want us to kill them. He was protecting his sibling. Nobunaga rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, makes sense, but I'm honestly curious, did he send us to protect them from the snake then? Phaeton shrugged his shoulder. Doesn't matter, we have our orders, we are going to fight the snake, and when the invasion begins the boss is going to kill him personally. The group nod their head, but Finks decided to ask another question. I'm wondering something, Machi, you seem even angrier than before. What's up, you hate Konoha for something they did to you? Not really, there is someone from here that taught me all I know all about medical studies. She is part of this village, but I personally want to gut her for treating me like a monster. Everyone saw her aura was getting darker and knew that it was best to let it go to avoid causing more rage boiling up inside of her. Everyone finally let go of the matter and went to sleep. Phaeton was sleeping on the floor with his back to the wall. Finks was sleeping on the ground with one of his arms behind his back, Nobunaga slept on the back with his back to the wall, and Machi was sleeping in the bed opposite side of Phaeton, but was sweating. You took everything I taught you and bastardized it. How could you? I was only doing what was necessary, that monster did this to her, how could you say he was in the right? Because you are supposed to be better than this. There is no point in spilling this much blood. Well, that is something we are going to disagree, that man raped and murdered her, and I could care less how you feel about it. The woman stared down at her and frowned. Fine, then you leave me no choice. She packed her bags and started heading out of the village before turning to her with a glare. You are to stay here for 4 days, long enough for me to get away from you, monster, and then you are never to bother me again. I'm ashamed I ever felt bad for you. The girl was heartbroken and glared at her back while whispering, the chance comes, I will kill you and everyone you love. Exam day. The day of the exam had come, everyone was buzzing about the potential chunin that might come from this year's exam. Not only that, the rumor on the mill was that almost all of the villages had sent someone this year other than Iowa. Apparently there were some sour moods about what happened during the war and they still resented Konoha for it. Not just that, they feared that some of their younger soldiers would try something stupid and wanted to avoid that potential issue popping up. From this point, only Kumo, Kiri, Suna and Konoha were participating next to some of the minor villages and towns that want a chance of expanding their ranks. For one thing, the rookies and Team 9 were gathered in the room and talking with each other about this current exam. At one end of the room was the Suna team with Gaara watching the twins with haunted eyes. A Kiri team consisting of a girl with a blue dress, blue eyes, dark red hair and a well-developed figure was standing there with a Chikuto blade on her back. Next to her was a boy with blue hair and wielding a bandaged sword and had sharp fangs in his mouth. Their final teammate was a white-haired teen with a blank look on his face and wearing a dark gray outfit that was baggy and considered too big on his body. The Kumo team consisted of a blonde-haired girl with pale skin and large, a dark-skinned girl with golden eyes and carrying a sword on her back, and another girl with long braided hair and carrying around prayer beads to go with her Kumo outfit. Finally, in the back of the room, hiding from everyone in the room, was Phaeton, Envy, who had just came back from murdering some bandits near the village, and Machi, who was busy examining her medical supplies rather than focusing on the people in the room. Honestly, the only person that she was unsure about was the boy with red hair from Suna, the twins of their leader, and someone in a Kusa outfit that was radiating darkness and a twisted nature that was matching a certain snake. Phaeton had warned her even if they spot him, they had to wait for the right moment to attack him or risk him getting away again. Hey girl. Turning her head, she saw 3 teens carrying a smug look on their faces and having Konoha headbands. She didn't bother really memorizing the boy considering he was just another annoying pissant. Yeah? What the fuck is someone like you doing here? This is no place for weaklings. She ignored him and continued examining her supplies. Not really any of your business now, is it? Now get lost. The teen was upset he was being talked down from someone that is not even part of a real village or clan. You think you are hot shit for coming here? You're not. You're nothing special and something that I will gladly wipe my ass with. She rolled her eyes. Great to know, now piss off. The teen's face went red and quickly grabbed her by the scruff of her shirt. Phaeton watched with a sigh knowing what was coming, and Envy was grinning like a madman. You want to say that again, bitch? The teen was ready to slug the woman into the wall before he found he was no longer holding her. Looking at his hand, he saw that it was snapped, that it was just hanging from his body. Finally realizing the pain coming from his hand, he screams in pain and holds it, frightening the rest of the competition, never seeing her move. His screaming ended when she flicked the guy in the head, sending him crashing into the wall with a vicious thud and forcing him to meld with the wall. His teammates were terrified by the raw power she showed, and many of the people in Konoha were wondering if this was the same skill that Tsunade possessed, in the ability to send people flying with a flick to the head. If so, then how did some outsider have this ability? Turning her head to the 2 teens, she just stared them and sent them scurrying away. They quickly ran to get their injured teammate and race out of the room. That was not necessary, Machi. Phaeton looked down at her, but she growled at him. Not my fault stupid people seemed attracted in trying to show off against me. I understand this, but that does not excuse this action. We will be talking about this later. He turned to the front of the room and saw the examiner had appeared. The first part of the Chunin exam has begun. Will we meet again? Yes we will, and when we do then we will fight to determine the strongest. Sounds troublesome. Don't say that, idiot. Think about it, a battle of the five, it will be great. Can't we just settle it now though? No you idiot, it has to be in the future, otherwise we won't know who has progressed the most. Make no mistake, I will come for you and we will settle our dispute. Fine, then I look forward to it. An alarm rings and raising a teen from his bed. The teen was about 15 and had blonde spiky hair that stood upright. From there, he had blue eyes that looked on with boredom or just a pure blank expression. Tan body complexion and cheeks while having a thick muscular frame to go with his looks. At this same point, he had a long katana blade resting next to his bed with a golden square handle guard and black handle for the blade. This was Naruto Uzumaki, and he is the oldest son of the fourth Hokage, but he was also known as the black sheep of the family. Why was he the black sheep? Well, this all dates back to his father sealing the Kyuubi and his three siblings. His two sisters and brother. Mito, looks like a young Kushina, Naruko, Fem. Naruto, and Boruto, same as canon. All of them had a piece of the Kyuubi sealed into them while he had the soul in his stomach. While not as great as a gift, he considered it one, considering it was the closest thing to a friend he had since his other friends left the village years ago. You see, due to his siblings having the chakra, they were treated like kings and queens, while he was seen as a stain on the family. The villagers never harmed him, but he was ignored and ridiculed for his lack of skill compared to his siblings. At the same time, his father and mother spent all their time with his siblings and were training them to master the Kyuubi, but they also trained them in the path of the shinobi. They mastered most stuff that would allow them to outstrip genins and some chunins if they caught them off guard. But without the Kyuubi chakra they were about high genin, while he himself knew that he could take on jounin if he really tried. Plus he learned from the soul that without the soul to connect the chakra his siblings had would disappear in the near future and just be increasing their reserves while giving them the cloak. He on the other hand had the soul which regained its chakra and he became a full-fledged demon container. He didn't want to learn about the demon's power until he was able to master his own style first and learn how to fight without it, which Kurama, the Kyuubi, praised him for. His siblings were so reliant on the demon's power they never could get as far without it. If they were cut off they had a limited repertoire to work with and a bit of addiction to the power. Naruto on the other hand had learned to make his own moves and create a style of swordplay. Due to his parents neglecting his training along with his godparents and other shinobi close to his family, he was on his own. He struggled at first until he met a nice retired samurai in the forest and learned under him and met some his friends. They all trained together with different styles and skills and sparred with each other. But one day the samurai died from a lingering injury and his friends moved away to other nations, so one day they could all fight each other again and see who had improved the most. Last he heard all of them went to major villages or were traveling the nation killing bandits. Back to his current predicament, Naruto had developed a lazy posture and disposition due to him training so hard that he could afford it. He never took anyone serious unless they showed tremendous skill and talent or radiated raw power or killing intent that set him on edge. Outside of that he treated everyone the same with the same lazy expression and responses. One time he was in the area with the other clan heads that they thought that he was a Nara with the way he acted, causing the clan to sigh. He was good friends with the Naras who always welcomed him over to the house to play shogi, watch the clouds, and train their minds. Naruto on the other hand had shown them some of his styles and jutsus, but they agreed to keep it quiet from everyone in the village, finding it too difficult to deal with. Naruto got dressed in his usual style. Wearing a thin white shirt, baggy pants, slipper shoes, and a pair of orange headphones that covered his ears. Sighing he walked downstairs with his sword in his right hand and saw his siblings were gathered around the table for breakfast while his father in his Hokage robe and blue jumpsuit sitting there laughing at the argument between the siblings. In the kitchen was his mother Kushina with her long red hair held up in a ponytail and wearing a green dress with an apron at the front of the dress. From what he could see she was cooking a large breakfast for everyone and smiled at them drooling at her food. Naruto just walked past her, grabbed an apple, his lunch which was already prepped, and walked out the house ignoring his mother, calling for him to come back. He walked down the street and headed to the academy while ignoring the sneers on people's faces. Then he heard the whispers. Look, it's him. What a disgrace. I heard he is the dead last of the academy. If I was his parents I would have disowned him for his lazy posture alone. Yeah, why can't they see he is shaming their family? Disgrace. Loser. Freak. They continued as he was passing by people and all he did in response was yawn loudly showing how much they meant to him. This angered the people there and wanted to teach him a lesson, but he just ignored them and continued to the academy. A few minutes later he was inside of the classroom looking out the window ignoring everyone that came into the classroom. More and more students starting piling into the room and finally his siblings showed up. He saw their looks. Boruto glared at him and snorted, Naruto sighed and faced away from him and Mito just glared at him and walked up to him. She glared at him more deathly and this sent all the boys and girls running to the other side of the room. Whenever Mito got angry people got the hell out of Dodge. Brother. Mito, what can I do for you? She glared deeply at him wearing her kunoichi outfit of a fishnet top, black skirt reaching to her knees, and a katana at her side. Mother wanted you at breakfast. So why does that matter if I chose to eat breakfast here? Her kai started to rise because she wanted to wish you luck for the academy. After all, today's is the day of the final exams and if you fail you will only shame the family more. Naruto turned to her. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that, would I? Look, stop pretending you actually care about me and go away. Mito finally reached for his collar, but before she could grab him and haul him to his feet, Iruka walked in with his assistant Mizuki. Mito growled and went to her seat with her siblings at the front of the class, while Naruto was left in his row alone. The only person that would sit with him is Shikamaru, but he opted to sit with Choji after seeing Mito nearly blow a gasket. Naruto looked down in the row ahead of him and saw Sakura Haruno sitting next to Sasuke Uchiha and Ino Yamanaka, and they were arguing over him. Naruto ignored this and saw the brooding asshole was looking ahead thinking of how to kill the man that slaughtered his clan. Apparently of the few survivors accounts a masked Uchiha attacked them and left only Sasuke, Itachi, Mikoto, and his sister Satsuki alive. But that was not much of a consolation prize, Sasuke turned emo and wanted to kill the man responsible for making the Uchiha clan looking weak. Naruto moved on and saw his teachers were going over the rules of the exam, including handing out the written test and saw that the questions were easy. So he filled out the test in 10 minutes and went to sleep with his music blaring in his ears. Iruka was angry that Naruto was not taking the test seriously and saw the same angry look in his sibling's face. To punish him he took his test up and looked over his answers. The more he read the more shocked he was at how he got every single question right. More in the sense, he got it down to such detail that he was sure that this was someone else's work, but he saw him write the answers down. So how was it that the dead last was showing knowledge when he barely tried in class beforehand? Naruto, he was something an enigma and he wanted to figure out what he was playing at. After an hour Iruka had all the tests graded and saw that out of the students, Naruto scored the highest on the test, even more than his studious Sakura Haruno and his siblings other than Boruto who favored action. Announcing this part of the exam was over they all headed outside. Alright everyone, your goal of the accuracy exam is to hit the targets with the kunai and shurinkens. He started calling students and saw most civilian students only got the bare minimum to pass including Sakura, while most of the clan children actually scored higher than them at about 7/10, while Sasuke and the Namikaze triplets were getting 9/10 for both tests. Naruto was called last and he walked up sighing at the boredom in this test. The class snickered thinking he was going to mess up until he took the kunais in both hands and without looking through them into the target, hitting all the vital points and earning a perfect score. Next he did the same with the shurinkens causing the students to freak. Most were thinking he was cheating, his siblings wondering how he was doing this, jealousy coming through Sasuke and Boruto, and the fangirls saying he couldn't do better than the two hottest boys in the academy. Iruka ignored them and wrote down the score before moving on to the Taijutsu test, where they were to last a minute with Mizuki. Each student lasted the minimum, while the others managed to land solid blows on the teacher. Sasuke and the Namikaze and Hinata were winning their bouts until they were told to stop. Naruto stepped up next, bored out of his mind and sword at his side. Mito carried hers around, and so did he, but he opted to hold on to it. He waited for the signal, and without warning Mizuki started going full speed of a Chunin after him, shocking everyone why he was going so hard on the dead last, and Iruka frowning of not going to benchmark of genin level speed. This led to Naruto dodging the strikes with ease and just ducking under him and appearing behind him with the same bored look. This angered him again, and he charged once more until Naruto appeared behind him and hit a nerve point in his neck, knocking him out in 30 seconds. This led to him taking the lead of having points for this part of the exam before they all head back into the classroom. Alright everyone, that has the points, you only have to do the 3 basic jutsu and then you pass. Most of the civilians failed at this part and were told to try again next year. While the clan children passed easily whereas his siblings were doing shadow clones due to their massive reserves. Naruto was next, and upon entering the examining room, he did the quick substitution with the teacher, hinging into his master, a black-hair samurai that had an intimidating presence and carried 2 black swords and wore a black guy in sandals. Both teachers were intimidated by his eyes and quickly agreed to pass the boy. But the final move was the clone jutsu, and he used the shadow clones as well, allowing him to not just pass, but also to be the rookie of the year. He walked out with a black headband and out of the school where he saw his parents and the parents of the other clan heads waiting. The kids were talking about the future as shinobi, while his parents were praising his siblings until they saw him. When they saw the black headband they knew that he was the top of the academy, confusing them. They knew his grades were the worst in the class, so how could he be the top of the class? Naruto yawned and walked away from the group into the nearby tree line and started heading to one of the training grounds. Mito saw his mother was upset that he didn't come to greet them and growled. She wondered why her brother was such an asshole at times and why he was part of their family. He was going to shame them in the field and wanted to avoid this. "Come on everyone, we will meet your brother at home," Mito said. "I'm going to do something right now, you guys head out without me." She waited for them and took off after her brother. When she found him he was training in a nearby training field, more like his clones were, while he was sleeping on the grass. "What do you want, Mito?" She hopped out of the tree and growled. "I can't believe you are still lazing around while your clones do all the work." Naruto sat up. "Yeah, my workouts aren't until tomorrow, so I'm taking some time to catch up on some sleep." "You scum, how could you shame us further? I thought you were at least trying to be a shinobi, but it looks like I was wrong." "But that is not a surprise, you were always a mistake." Naruto didn't flinch at the comment. "Yeah, I was told that many times in my life by you and the villagers. Tell me something that would really get to me, or new at least." Mito took a stance and had her hand on her sword. "Stand, loser, I'm going to show you why you should have never taken that headband." Naruto looked at her and sighed. "If I even took you seriously you would die. Plus nothing I do now would convince you that I'm strong in my own right." Snored. "Yeah right, you're not even going to force me to break a sweat in this fight." Naruto stood up and had his sword in hand. "I'm the one that is bothersome for, you're not even at the same level." Mito, hearing enough of his mouth, charged him with her sword drawn. Once she was on top of him she slashed at him, but the attack went through him, making her think she got him. But when she turned to face him she saw he was completely unscarred, and what was worst, he said, "1, 2, 3. Before she knew it she felt cuts appearing on her back and the pain finally forcing her to the ground. Naruto sighed. "Yeah, see there, that was a complete waste of my time." Naruto walked up to her and sighed. "Do you know why you lost?" Mito was still in shock, so there was no answer. "Simple, you see, in most fights, you would be able to find a counter for slower opponents and styles that you are familiar with. But in your case you missed two things. One, I'm much faster than you and can cut you down with greater ease, while at the same point I'm using a style not from this village. So this cost you the fight and forced you into your current position. Tell me, do you still think I'm the dead last of the academy, even though my headband tells people I'm the rookie of the year?" Naruto had one of his clones come over and told him to heal her while he was walking off. Mito, after getting healed, saw the clone disappear and she was left alone with cuts on her clothes. She started to walk home slowly, thinking about what just happened to her. Her brother defeated her. He cut her without her seeing his movement, and he did it with the same expression on his face. At the same time she was sure that he was not even trying, while also cutting off her connection to the Bijuu's chakra, preventing her from healing. Now she really wondered what he was capable of and why he was hiding it from the rest of the family. The way he spoke was someone that had learned from veterans and how to break down a battlefield with greater ease. Eventually she arrived at home to see her younger siblings were talking to their parents and their godparents and godbrother. One was the weirdly dressed Jiraiya, the busty Tsunade Senju, and the white fang son Kakashi Haddock. They turned to greet Mito, but saw she was in deep thought. "You okay, brat?" Jiraiya's comment earned him a look from Tsunade. "I think it is obvious something is bothering the brat, so kid, spill it." Mito saw everyone was waiting for an answer, but before she could, Naruto walked into the room. "Sigh, this is troublesome, got to really learn to keep the damage to minimum." Naruto was thinking about his last move he just tried to master. He had a special move that he specifically developed for the future battles that could wipe out entire battlefields with ease. But unfortunately, it still damaged his arms too much to use more than a few times a day. That is why currently he was healing from the damage subtly. Naruto looked up and saw the rest of his family looking at him and his godparents and family friend looking at him with confusion of what he was saying. Naruto just walked by them until he heard his father call him to come back. Naruto ended up sitting on a couch and looking at everyone with boredom. "Naruto, I first want to congratulate for graduating at the top of your class. You have to understand we were most concerned with your considering out of all your siblings, you were always the one with the least amount of training. But this also raises the question of how you passed at the top of the class. Yeah, brat, if you cheated you need to tell us now so we don't find out later. I mean, there is no shame in admitting you're not as good as your siblings, I mean they're prodigies in their own right." Naruto looked at his godfather and snorted. "Yeah right, like I would cheat in a test that was so easy that it was not worth bothering with. Plus if you really want to talk about cheating, you might want to look at Mizuki, who tried to use Chunin level skill against me in a practice match for the final. I heard about that and we are getting a read on why he did it, but at the same time I have to ask, how did you get so good that you could knock him out?" Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "I trained like anyone else. I met someone when they came into the village and learned some cool stuff. From there I just continued growing from that stuff after they left, and now I'm at my current level." Naruto stared at Minato, who stared back at his son, seeing if there was any sign of deceit. He couldn't see any, but he also knew that his son was hiding more of his abilities from them, but the question to him was why? Did he not trust all of them? Did he want to be selfish and deny his siblings training his arts just because he was not the center of attention in the village? "Naruto, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, good night." Naruto turned his head away from them and proceeded back to his room while feeling their eyes watching him like hawks. Mito was watching him with shock at how he just disregarded them. At first she thought it was because he was selfish, but now she could understand from fighting and losing to him. He didn't hold them in high regard because he was forced to find other people that loved and cared for him. Something no child should not have to do, but the rest of the family seemed to not realize, considering she could see either confusion, apprehension, anger, or jealousy. Narumi was shocked with how cold Naruto was to them. Especially since he hated people as a whole. First Naruto had defeated Mito, who in her mind was the strongest of all of them. So did that mean that he really was stronger than all of children of the Hokage, or was he just lucky with his attack? She needed to find out herself soon. Naruto was furious, how dare that loser lie about defeating Mito. He was not worthy of being part of their clan and felt it was better they kick him out. The sooner the better, considering he was a disgrace to the clan. He was only going to drag their name through the dirt with his shameful skill and behavior. Jiraiya had told him that his brother would never be as great as him, and he bought into it when his parents talked them up and never showed the time for their brother. On top of the fact he was the dead last for so long just proved his point. The adults on the other hand were wondering how to approach Naruto about his skills. Jiraiya felt that he needed to be reminded his place, and that was at the bottom of the clan. After all, one of the triplets had the power to change the world and was going to bring eternal peace. Kakashi was on board with this, and so was his parents, but he could see they all were thinking about what he was talking about. So what he got training from some old man that walked into the village, it was nothing like him and Tsunade or two of the great Sannin of the village. Back with Naruto, he had locked the door to his room and laid out on the bed looking up at the ceiling thinking about his old friends. When they all met they were all rivals trying to become the best. But eventually they became a family of their own. He had brothers to love and challenge him, someone to lay his head on when he needed them. Girls that were going to be there for emotional support and promising that he would be their friend or future lover if some of them had their way. Thinking back, he fell asleep thinking of his sensei. "I hope you are proud of me, Miyamoto-sensei." There was a light whisper in the room. "Always my son." Naruto smiled and went to sleep. Next day, Naruto was sitting in the academy building waiting for the team assignment. Honestly, he was not eager to have a team to work with that was going to look down their nose at him. More in the sense that he knew that most of the civilian families were not going to make it as shinobi, while most of the clan kids were thinking he was some kind of idiot that can't fight. So they would refuse to work with him or had his advice, frustrating him extensively. Seeing his siblings, he saw that Mito was looking at him with guilt, Narumi with curiosity, and his brother anger and jealousy. He would flare his aura at him and try to intimidate him, but Naruto refused to acknowledge him, and this just made his aura bigger and bigger until Mito finally hit him to cut it out. He would growl at her and started hanging out with Kiba and his crew, causing Naruto to snort. His crew were just a bunch of ass-kissers, wanting to be close to the son of the Hokage instead of being his real friend. Naruto snorted at the rest of the students talking about heroic activities they would take on while they are shinobi, but in reality Naruto knew the truth. First few months they would be doing shitty missions around the village. Mostly some chores that civilians were too lazy to do, and he was sure they were not going to pay him due to him being the black sheep in the eyes of the public and not worthy of his attention. What is worst, he knew as a shinobi you kill, steal, blackmail, and destroy lives and entire countries if necessary to get the job done. Money is what makes the world go round, but he knew that it was also the more famous you became, the more people wanted to kill you and make a name for themselves. That is the only part Naruto was split on. One hand he wanted to become strong in his own right, but not the expense that some jackass is going to try and kill him in his sleep like a dot. But it is what it is, and he was a light sleeper anyway, so there is no doubt it would take a special person to catch him off guard. But he was not arrogant thinking he was unbeatable, knowing that someone from his old circle could challenge him at times, and there are a few he knew with the right skill set that could defeat him in battle. Iruka walked into the room with a smile on his face and congratulated everyone on graduating and wanting the best for them in the future. Soon he started reading off the list of students and who they were teamed up with. Especially with the civilian families going first, showing that they are not going to be making it far, so get them out of the way. This led to Naruto hearing the last few teams. Team 7 is Mito, Narumi, and Boruto Uzumaki Namikaze training under Kakashi Haddock and assisted by Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Everyone groaned not being with one of the kids of the Hokage and that they were going to be the best team in the entire village. Team 8 is Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburam, and your teacher is Kurina Yuhi. Hinata was sad to not be with her crush Boruto and Kiba not being with his friend, while Shino was neutral. Team 9 is still in circulation, so Team 10 is going to be Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi under Asuma Sarutobi. Ino complained while the other two just ignored her complaints. Team 11 is Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Ami training under Genma. Sasuke grunted and continued to brood, while Sakura and Ami were cheering to being on Sasuke's team while glaring at each other. Team 12 is going to be Satsuki Uchiha, Yakumo Kurama, and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze training under our new Jounin Urza Uzumaki. Everyone was stunned silent, everyone knew who she was, considered by many a monster among Jounin, surprise considering she was the sister of Kushina Uzumaki. From what people knew she was found outside the village working as a mercenary, and Kushina found out who she was, and finding out that she was her sister it was a tearful reunion. She was renowned for her sword style and the ability to create different armor from chakra to help her combat any situation, while also being a master at using the chains and creating weapons or hardening with her chakra. Overall she was a S-class kunoichi with almost no equal other than her sister Kushina and a handful of people that could figure out how to beat her in battle. Naruto saw the Jounin entering the room one by one until only him and Team 7 remained and he saw his teammates were talking with each other about their new teacher. But occasionally they would look his way and he could only turn his music up and lay his head on the desk. They were like this for almost 3 hours until their sensei showed up with some other people who then told him that they are sorry. Kakashi decided he wanted to wait as long as possible and irritate the rest of you. Sorry, Urza-senpai. Kakashi was being dragged by his hair and showed several bruises on his body and some splotches of blood. Kushina was furious with how he was acting and just said, "Meet us up at the roof all of you." Soon they shoe-shined, but when they got there Naruto was already up on the roof. He was sleeping on the nearby water tower confusing them. How did he get here so quickly? Urza knew that he didn't use Shushin otherwise she would have sensed his chakra beforehand, but it was impossible for him to move that fast right. Soon everyone else joined them on the roof and Urza began. "Okay, we are doing introductions, I'll go first. My name is Urza Uzumaki. My likes are my books, sake, cheesecake, and creating new moves, dislikes those that waste my time, touch my food, or mess with my sake, hobbies training, reading shopping, and tasting different food. Dream for the future, continue to be one of the greatest Uzumakis the world has ever known." Kushina stepped up. "My name is Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, but you could call me either one doesn't matter to me. My likes are my family, training, and ramen. Dislikes are perverts, those that abuse others, and people who mock my hair. Hobbies are the same as my sister's and dream to see my whole family together." She looked at Naruto for this with Urza raising an eyebrow, she was not around the family much so she didn't know what was going on. Especially considering she always thought that their family was tighter than most. But it would seem appearances could be deceiving in this case. "My name is Kakashi Haddock, my likes are my own, dislike same as my likes, hobbies you're too young to hear, and dreams never really thought about them." Naruto snorted and the rest looked frustrated he said nothing else. So the genin went next. "My name is Boruto. My likes are training, being praised, and becoming better as time goes on. Dislikes those that think they are better and don't know their place, the disrespect I receive from a certain someone, and my dream is kick that asshole out of my life." The group frowned at what he was saying and Naruto just ignored him. "Mito Uzumaki and I like training and trying new foods. Dislikes those that are too arrogant and try their luck with me. Hobbies are same as Urza-sensei, but my dream is to one day become the first female Hokage. Narumi Namikaze Uzumaki. I like a lot of things, dislike perverts and assholes, hobbies are training and learning of new ramen flavors, and dream is to become Hokage before Mito." The two sisters had a friendly glaring contest while moving on to Satsuki. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like training, my mom, and learning things about being a shinobi from my brother Itachi. Dislikes are my brother Sasuke, the clan's arrogance, and the people who think we are unbeatable or gods. Hobbies are training, shopping, and learning cooking skills from my mother. Dream is to surpass my brother as a shinobi and my mother as a woman." She blushed while pushing up her visible C cup, causing Boruto to stare before being hit by Mito. Ikumo Kurama, likes are Jinjutsu, dislikes a certain jounin in the village, hobbies are painting and learning new illusions, dream is to one day bring my clan back to its former glory and become the leader it needs. Seeing everyone else is done they stared at Naruto who walked down the side of the water tower, shocking the jounin he was able to do the tree walking exercise already that was insane. Name's Naruto, likes I guess is my sword, training, and my old friends and sensei. Dislikes people who waste my time or think too much of themselves against me without really testing me or wasting sleeping time, hobbies sleeping, training, mastering the styles of my teacher, and preparing for the future. Dream attain the title of greatest sword user in the world, defeat a certain someone, and keep my sensei proud of me." "Who was your sensei Naruto?" He turned away from Kakashi and sat on the fence overlooking the entire academy. After being ignored they told them about the real test and they would be tested tomorrow, while Urza said field 15, while Kakashi and Kushina said field 7. After watching them leave Naruto saw his teammates were looking at him wanting to spend time with him. Naruto hopped off the fence and walked with them to the nearby restaurant where he paid for lunch. There he learned more about them and finally headed home to prepare for his fight with Urza. He was almost there when he felt someone behind him and saw it was Mizuki with a crazed look in his eyes. "You cost me everything, you damn brat. I'm going to take your life for it." Naruto sighed and saw there was no one around, so no one could see him do this. "I don't have time for someone as weak and stupid as you. Disappear." Naruto rolled his sleeves up and showed a black tattoo of a dragon wrapping itself around his arm going down to his palm. He gathered the chakra in the tattoo and before they knew it, he fired the attack at him, causing a large black dragon to appear with green eyes. This terrified the Chunin, but couldn't move from the fear he was feeling and was turned to ash. Naruto winced at the use of the attack and grabbed his arm. The attack still took too much out of him and sighed. Figured not ready to use the full power of this attack still. But my control is getting better to only have this flinch. He hid the tattoo again under an illusion and proceeded back to the house, eager to see what tomorrow was going to bring him. Naruto is entering the village again from completing another S-class mission for the village. Today he was more annoyed than anything considering he heard that Neji, the new Hokage, wanted to talk to him about him expanding on the idea of spreading his seed. Again, this is an issue that keeps being brought up mostly because Naruto's cold personality has cut him off from everyone around him. But it was not his fault for the most part, he was bitter because no matter what he did, he was denied the thing he fought for so many times. A few years ago Neji was made the Hokage after Tsunade making him feel betrayed and annoyed. All he did in the 4th Ninja War and succeeding in bringing down Sasuke was not enough for him to be considered a great leader for the village. Instead they said he was not mature enough to become the Hokage and they would be passing it off to Neji. Naruto arrived in the tower and handed him his report. "Naruto, wait, you still need to tell me about the mission." Naruto glared at him. "It's in the report, Hokage-sama." He slammed the door behind him causing Neji to sigh. This was the worst feeling in the world. This was not supposed to be permanent just until Naruto matured a little bit and then they would hand him the hat. But instead, after the meeting Naruto became bitter and angry with everyone that supported the decision, thus making him unworthy of the Hokage position and this ignited constant problems with him and the rest of his generation. All of them had moved on and had family and kids of their own, making him the only person that was still single. Hell, even Sasuke after losing his eyes and losing his mark to Naruto had a wife in Sakura and a child on the way. He heard the door open and in the room was Kiba waiting with his genin team, ignoring the problem with Naruto he advised them on their mission. Afternoon, Naruto was lying in his bed trying to get some sleep after running missions non-stop for the last 2 weeks. Due to this he had bags under his eyes and barely could stand on his own 2 feet at times. Since his friends heard he was not having relationships they threw missions they were supposed to take on him so they could spend time with their kids and families. Thus leaving him without some time to himself and making him feel bitter against them. Naruto heard someone banging on his door but decided to ignore it and wait for whoever it was to leave. Not even an hour later he heard his door blasted down causing him to get out of bed to meet the angry face of Tsumin Yuzuka and some of her clan members. They were enraged but he was uncaring about it until she was throwing a fist in his face. Grabbing her hand he stopped the attack but this ignited the rest of the clan until Neji walked into the room. "Tsum, stand down." She growled but did as she was told to do. "Naruto, where were you? Because of you Kiba's team was not saved in time, his genin barely made it out with their lives and Kiba might not be able to be a shinobi anymore. How are we supposed to explain this to his wife and kids that they might not be able to be supported by this method anymore?" Naruto yawned making the clan angrier. "How about telling them you were too damn lazy to send the other 1,000 of shinobi into the field to save him and his team? Honestly, you all think just because I don't have a family or girlfriend you can dump shit me however you please, do me a favor and get bent. Naruto, that is exactly why the village didn't allow you to become Hokage. Continuing with this train of thought and you will never achieve your dream." Naruto looked down and gave off a cold chuckle. "Whoever said I wanted to be Hokage anymore? After being denied for so long, why bother fighting for something that will always be out of my reach? You idiot. You were so close." Tsum was stunned, she thought Naruto would continue to strive to be someone special still. However, he made it clear he was giving up on this goal and wanting to be alone. Neji would have to be the pillar of strength for the village, making it more difficult for them to prosper. The main reason they still had so many allies was because of Naruto, and this was not going to bode well with the rest of the village or their allies. Naruto saw Tsum and her clan leave while he and Neji were having a stare down. He knew for a fact he could thrash him, but it was not worth the effort, he just didn't have the strength to deal with people that were weaker than him at this point. "You were suspended for not coming on orders of the Hokage." Before he could react he felt a headband hit him in the face. "I'll do one better, I resign from being a shinobi. You have to accept my resignation due to the charter that if someone is stuck being a ninja for more than 6 years, then they are allowed to leave the main forces after that set period of time." "Naruto, you can't be serious." Naruto glared at the man. "I am, now please leave my home Hokage-sama." Neji could only gather the headband and walk out of the house wondering what he was going to do. Once everyone found out that he left the forces, then they would realize that he could not be touched by the council anymore. Especially considering he was the strongest warrior their village had ever trained since the earliest age. Naruto could only stare out the window before taking a deep breath and entering his mindscape. Upon entering the room he saw that it was different from the other times he was there. It was a white plains with ice shards lying around the battleground. "I'm ready to talk." The man in the distance had short spiky white hair and seemed to radiate an odd aura of ice and snow. Looking behind him he smirked. "I thought you would come to see me after seeing how your friends treated you recently." "Indeed, is the deal still on the table?" He smirked and turned to the teen completely. He was an exact replica of Naruto minus his hair color and the fact he had no whisker marks on his face. "Yep, you know you go through with this and you will never be able to return to this world. Who cares? Everyone I care about is lighter used me for their own means. I only want to have my own path in life and this is the only way to do it." The white copy nodded his head. "I felt the same way, but at least you know your parents loved you more than anything else in the world." He smiled. He told his parents about this version of himself and what he was offering, and they told him that whatever he does, they would support him. "Yeah, and they only want what is best for me. When can we do this merger and leave this world behind?" The white-haired teen smiled. "The merger we can do now, but the travel will require a day to set up, trust me you'll see when we fuse." "So who will be the dominating personality?" The white Naruto smiled. "We will cease to exist, and both of us will finally become one again." Without waiting for a response he wrapped his other half in a hug and a bright light blinded his mindscape where he woke up in the real world, seeing that it was about 8 in the morning. He remembered his life as Naruto Uzumaki, but at the same time memories of his time as Naruto Shini was coming to him. He remembered his weapon that was sealed away in his arm, so rubbing some blood on his left arm, he summoned a black handle katana and a blue engraved with different runes that signal a different rite of passage. This blade was his main weapon back in Remnant, with a special set of pistols that he had sealed in his other arm. Gathering up his belongings and some of his personal artifacts, he proceeded out of the room until he felt someone tugging at his mind. Closing his eyes he saw that he was in a large plain with Kyuubi staring down at him with his counterpart doing the same. With them were the other 8 beasts each looking on with concern and interest written on their face. "Naruto, are you really going through with this?" Naruto nodded his head to Kurama and his twin. "Yes, this world no longer needs me. They are just using me now to advance their own lives while I'm left behind in the darkness. At least with this plan I have a chance to make my own future in a new world. Hidden, we are all aboard with the idea, but we want to know something." Looking at Nibi he nodded his head. "Will you let us come with you?" "Sure, I would hate to have all of you guys sealed away against your will again." The Bijuu smiled. They might have been okay with their past wielders, but Naruto was definitely the best. He cared for their thoughts and passions, so they would have the right to choose how they live. So doing this Naruto promised them a chance of freedom, but they preferred being inside Naruto in order to deter people trying to come for them down the line. "So how is this going to work?" Yanbi was the first to question this, considering he has never thought space and time travel was impossible. But if Naruto Shini came here from another world that meant it was possible, but how is still the question. "Simple, I've got a special seal that I've saved for this day, and I will use it to free me from this world and allow us to live in Remnant as we wish. But so are we leaving now?" Naruto nodded his head to Sanbi, and with that he woke up in the real world again and was out of the door and heading to the monument to open the portal. This is where he first came, so this is where he would exit this world. Naruto Shini, the youngest child of the Shini family. Naruto Uzumaki, the son of the greatest heroes in the village's history. But now, together were Naruto Uzumaki Shini, the child wanting to take his life into his own hands instead of being dictated by someone around him. Naruto arrived at the top of the monument thanks to his Hiraishin Justu, but the minute he made the sign for the portal he felt people behind him and some of them were very familiar to him. Turning around he saw all the rookies and their families, Neji and his Anbu, Kakashi and Tsunade, looking at him with anger and disappointment, and surprisingly Hagoromo and his parents, along with Jiraiya and Hiruzen. "Naruto, I'm glad we could catch you before you left." Naruto glared at Hagoromo. "You're not going to stop me, old man. I will be making my own choice with how my life is going and no one is going to stop me." The sage sighed and nodded his head. "I wasn't going to stop you, I just thought you would like to say goodbye before you cross that border of no return." Naruto thought about it and sighed. "Sure." Approaching the third Hokage he smiled at the man that was his grandfather in everything but blood. "Naruto, I'm so proud with how you've grown up. No matter what you believe I will always love you as if you were my grandson." Naruto walked up to the old man and hugged him tightly. I'll miss you on the other side, Gigi. He returned the hug. I will miss you as well, Naruto. Take care of yourself and carry your will of fire into the next world. Naruto nodded his head and turned to Jiraiya, who smiled at him with a pat on his head. You did great, Gaki, I can't be any more proud of you. Promise me one thing, keep moving forward and never let anyone make you doubt the path you are on. I will, you old pervert. Goodbye, sensei. He hugged the perv and he hugged him back. While he was not always the best person in the world, he was proud to be part of his last student's life to the point he gave his life for him. Promising he would always be there even if he is in another world, watching over him to make sure he was safe and carry on his will. Turning to his parents, he smiled and hugged them both. It might not be the real me anymore, but I'm glad I was your son and I'm proud to call you my parents. Kushina broke down in tears and hugged her son while muffling stuff into his shoulder. Minato smiled and had tears running down his face as well and hugged Naruto. It doesn't matter if there is 1,000 yous that you fuse together with, you're our son no matter what, and you're always our son first. No matter what you believe, we are glad to be your parents. Naruto broke down in tears and smiled up at them. Thank you, Mom, Dad. Kushina looked at her son. Promise me you will take care of yourself and promise you will try to find true happiness sometime in the future. Naruto smiled. I will. She kissed him on the forehead. Then you are going to do me proud no matter what happens, Naruto. Naruto broke away from them and turned a dark glare at the rest of the group. This is the end of you thinking you can use me for your own purposes. This is the end of the lies, deceit and abuse that I have suffered through all of you. I promise you this, don't ever expect me to come and save you again, because that foolish child is dead. He turned to the portal, not hearing everyone shouting for him to come back. He disappeared and the portal shut behind him and the world went quiet. He was finally free. Remnant. Naruto was sitting in a bar near a weapons store. Apparently this was considered a low-income watering hole in a sense, since no one really visited this place. Other than when they were visiting someone called Junior. He was unbothered by this information until he felt someone staring at him. Looking up, he saw it was a man with dark hair wearing a red and black outfit. Can I help you? Yeah, tell me your age, kid. Naruto snorted. This man was trying to intimidate him. 17 now, bugger off. He was about to take a deep drink until he grabbed his wrist. You better be trying to stop a poisoning or I will remove your head from your shoulders. The man pulled his hand away after Naruto shot him a dark look with some of the Biju chakra to back him up. But he soon saw someone entering the bar and she was something else. Long blonde hair, lilac eyes, tight yellow top with brown jacket, short biker shorts and brown boots on her feet. She was wearing some kind of yellow bracers on her arm that he knew was a weapon in its own right. Her were barely restrained by her top and her ass was showing how tight and big it was. Honestly, she was a 9/10 in his mind. But the problem was that Naruto was not sure about her personality. If she was uptight, then he would keep his evaluation, but if not, then she might move to a perfect 10 in his mind. Hello there, Junior, I'm looking for information. What kind, kid? She handed him a picture of a black hair woman with red eyes and wearing some kind of black and red armor around her body and carrying a red sword. Seeing the picture caused Naruto's head to start running wild. He was holding his head in pain while he saw something in his mind. Snowfield, nightfall, he saw a black hair woman wearing a white skull mask. She was holding a red sword in her hand and was standing in front of him. She requires your services. Tell your boss I'm not interested in meeting someone who is too weak to meet me themselves. It is not a request, it's an order. Naruto pulled out his sword, Yamato, and motioned her to come on. Then show me your strength and I might be willing to listen to your request. So a display of strength is required. I respect that, very well, we shall duel. Naruto smiled and soon there were sparks of their blades. The vision blurred to where he was standing over the black hair woman with his sword at her throat and a gun aimed at her as well. Game over. Indeed, I'm impressed, you are definitely stronger than I thought if you could beat me so easily. Naruto Shinii, also nicknamed as the Ice King. Interesting, she took off her mask showing her pale face and red eyes and a sultry smile on her face. Since you won, I guess I'll give you your reward. The vision blurs again and he is standing in front of her once more with some white hair, black and red eye woman standing in front of him. You don't have a choice anymore, child. Come with me or I promise you will suffer. Naruto smirked. Bring it on then, bitch. I don't serve those that don't prove themselves to me. She narrowed her eyes and sighed. I see you were right, Raven. She nodded her head and frowned at Naruto. He couldn't tell if she was worried about him or it was more she was concerned about how things were going to play out. The battle ragged on, but Naruto managed to cut the white hair woman and then she heard her scream, "You fool." Naruto woke back up in the bar and saw the girl was arguing with Junior now and he was ordering his guards to remove her from the bar. She cocked her bracers and loaded ammunition into the weapons and showed she was ready to fight. Apparently he was right, she was one of the brash ones that brought his opinion of her up a notch. But he felt his drink break in his hand and then Naruto glared at the guards. That lost kid, this is going to be messy if you don't. Naruto narrowed his eyes and snickered. Yeah, for you. Pulling on the handle of his sword, he was gone in a blur, appearing near the DJ. Doing this, the guards collapsed to the ground with a thud but were still breathing from the attack. Junior was shocked. While his men were not the best, they still were good for dealing with most of the riffraff that bothered his place. On top of that, this kid and girl were this girl's was about to do the same thing, but he doubted it would have been as clean, to be honest. "Look kid, I'm sorry my guys destroyed your drink, let me get you another one on the house." "I'm fine with that, next time make sure they don't bother me when I'm trying to get buzzed." Sure. Junior made a slight twitch and his DJ aimed his gun at Naruto, who was waiting for him to pull the trigger. But before he could, the blonde-haired girl already was moving around the room, taking out some of the other guards, while also making her way to the gunman in the booth, but he was forcing her to weave away from the gun bullets. She managed to make it to the booth and took the guy out before he could do any serious damage to the room. Naruto could admire her skills, but he then heard someone entering the room and saw it was a pair of twins. One was wearing red and black while the other was wearing white. Both each had weapons on their bodies and were different in appearance and how they were approaching. Naruto could see the leg strength was high on the girl in white, while the hand strength is high on the girl in red. "Well, it would seem we are having trouble, sister." "Indeed, we are going to need to deal with this quickly." The red girl ran at Naruto, while the white one followed behind her. However, Naruto reacted to their movements and quickly fired off several rounds from his handguns that he had appear in his hand. One was black and the other was white, marking them with the names Ebony and Ivory. Naruto saw them dodging the shots, showing off some skill of their own, but the blonde girl got between them, causing him to stop shooting. "I'll take care of this handsome." "Sure thing, good looking. Maybe I can get a name after you are done." The blonde girl nodded her head. "Sure thing, and maybe you can get me a drink while you are at it." Naruto smiled. She was cocky and very open with herself around people she barely knew. That is pretty cool considering she was someone that Naruto thought was a blowhard at first. He watched the fight while walking up to Junior, who was cowering in the back but was reaching for something behind his bar. "Whatever you are looking for, I would think twice before using it. You've seen what I could do to your guards, imagine what I can do to you. Did I only want you out of my bar, that is all. Take your friend with you. Then tell her what she wants to know about Raven Branwen." The man was shocked. "Look, even if I could I wouldn't, because she is someone that crossed as ruthless." "Indeed, but it's more she appreciates strength over something like brainless fan service." "Wait, how do you know her?" Naruto smirked. "I fought her a few years ago and defeated her in combat." "I see, well then okay, the truth is that I don't know where she is. Considering she is always on the move with her tribe, and plus she is someone that rarely interacts with me. So she is nomadic and has trust issues, sounds like her. She knows I'm easily beatable, and that trusting me with that kind of information is wrong." "True." Naruto turned around and saw the blonde girl was finished with the guards and now approaching Junior. Before she could say anything, Naruto appeared in front of her, signaling that was a no-go. "He doesn't know where your mother is." Especially considering she would never trust him with that kind of information due to how weak he and his men are. "I see." The blonde girl looked frustrated but agreed to his reasoning. "However, he can give us some alcohol for all the trouble he caused us." Naruto smirked. "Yeah, you heard the pretty lady." Junior immediately grabbed a bottle of his most expensive alcohol and threw it at them. They caught it and nodded their heads while walking out of the building.